You're out there in the expansive chill of the night, where the vast terrain unfolds endlessly and the sky chills the air with deliberate swiftness. Your breath mists before you, the grass crackling as frost takes hold. No homes or shelters dot the landscape, no tidy structures to hoard warmth, just boundless earth, stars piercing the darkness above, and a cold that seems almost inquisitive toward you. Right now, your contemporary urges might murmur that essentials are lacking. Attempting to handle this like a simple outdoor excursion could prove fatal, and that's no exaggeration, merely a gentle heads up on the true risks involved. The exposure hits you immediately, not quite threatening, but utterly revealed. The terrain doesn't enclose you. Boundaries blur seamlessly from your form into the enveloping darkness. Surprisingly, this sensation echoes the experiences of those whose paths you're tracing. Historians widely recognize that numerous Native American communities throughout North America endured extended periods without fixed dwellings, as later Europeans would term them. Far from indicating scarcity, this reflected an intentional bond with the environment, the seasons, and the rhythms of travel. The chill encroaches steadily, yet it lacks the shock it might carry if you'd anticipated barriers. That very anticipation is what you're gradually releasing. Rather than hunting for non-existent cover, your focus shifts to what's present. The terrain slopes subtly, shielding against the fiercest gusts. The vegetation bends in a particular way, suggesting spots where predecessors have paused. Underfoot, the soil isn't fully iced over, but solid, retaining echoes of the day's prior heat. A prevalent notion holds that enduring harsh weather hinges on constructions, overheads, sturdy barriers, divisions marking interior from exterior. Yet in this place, such divisions are scarce. The darkness imparts a swift insight. Heat isn't solely derived from containment. At times, it's crafted through placement, alignment, and precise moments. You're far from solitary in grasping this. Accounts from ethnographers gathered in later eras outline indigenous approaches to winter endurance that emphasized actions, resources, and communal wisdom transmitted subtly over generations, over reliance on edifices. As you sink nearer to the earth, a revelation emerges. The atmosphere inches above the dirt bites less keenly, not truly heated, but steadier. Breezes flow altered in this lower realm. Such awareness wasn't happenstance. Ages past taught that elevation beckons the freeze. Uprightness suits daylight pursuits. Twilight rewards the crouched. This truth seldom graces sensational narratives, though experts on everyday existence beyond conflicts or pacts affirm its validity. Close by, fellow figures are easing into repose as well. No proclamations ring out, no declarations of bedtime. The noises merely evolve, motions decelerate, inhalations grow fuller. Such unspoken harmony stands as survival's most overlooked asset. One preserved anecdote from certain spoken histories claims that the evening's severity could be gauged by insect activity right after dusk. An abrupt silence in their hum signaled intensified readiness. Debates persist on its precision versus its ritual nature, but the vigilance it fostered was key. You reposition once more, drawing your body inward, not from direct guidance, but from innate sense. This pattern defined learning. Watch, then mirror, with rationale following only if needed. Academics debate if this method outpaced structured teaching, yet most concur it fostered profound intuitive mastery. The frost heightens your senses. Nearby, you catch the rustle of coverings, not the structured textiles of today, but yielding, uneven fabrics that adapt to form instead of clashing. Attire here serves no aesthetic role. It functions as portable design. A solidly documented aspect of history notes that pelts from beasts were processed, stacked, and formed to capture atmosphere, which outperforms mere bulk in retaining heat. Atmosphere provides the true buffer. Your physique acts as the scaffold. Another realization dawns. No blaze crackles, not yet anyhow. This could strike as odd. In typical present-day reasoning, flames equate to comfort, yet exposed fires draw notice, squander resources, and provoke erratic shifts in climate as they fade. Various communities opted to wait for darkness to fully descend, observing the chill's behavior before taking action. There's a sense of unhurried calm in this approach, which seems indulgent despite stemming from pure pragmatism. As you rest there, the heavens appear nearer than before. The stars don't merely flicker gently, they blaze intensely. The frieze sharpens their appearance, making them seem more abundant and vivid. This identical canopy once directed migrations with the seasons, dictated hunts, and fueled ancient tales. Those narratives held greater weight during the colder months. With minimal interruptions, voices traveled further and resonated deeper. Certain scholars suggest that extended frigid evenings helped safeguard verbal traditions, as folks remained in place long enough to truly hear them. Some debate the extent to which weather influenced narrative traditions versus cultural frameworks. Consensus remains elusive, and that ambiguity enriches the overall understanding. Your breathing eases. The first jolt of the chill recedes, giving way to a more even keel. It's not coziness, but equilibrium. Warmth hasn't arrived. Panic has ebbed. True endurance thrives in this neutral space, resilience rather than relief. You ponder momentarily how initial European chroniclers often labeled Native Americans as rudimentary or inadequately sheltered. Such misconceptions originated in evenings just like this one. Strangers spotted no structures and presumed fragility. They overlooked the adaptive methods that differed from their own. Contemporary experts increasingly highlight that these biases exposed more about colonial mindsets than actual native ways of life. The earth under you remains firm. In the distance, a subtle shift occurs. An individual repositions a covering. Another turns marginally to shield from the wind. Silence prevails. Words aren't required. Darkness isn't a foe to defeat. It's an element to integrate with. As the frost establishes a steady cadence, you grasp that dwellings represent just one option in a broader array. This evening, you're discovering an alternative that starts not with barriers, but with attentiveness. The remainder unfolds gradually, much like twilight itself, through incremental choices. The gloom doesn't intensify abruptly. It constricts bit by bit, akin to fingers curling one by one into a fist. You sense it initially in your ears, next in your feet, then in the altered quality of your exhalations. Here, you begin to comprehend that the chill isn't merely an environmental factor, it's an instructor. And like any rigorous mentor, it reiterates its teachings until they become ingrained. You observe that those nearby show no haste in response. There's no frantic rush or desperate bid to erect something sturdy as the mercury falls lower. Such urgency fits those who rely on enclosures to handle the burden. In this setting, the preparation occurred soundlessly, well in advance of this evening. A widely recognized aspect of history is that native populations in harsh climates didn't delay adaptations until frost set in. Their physical habits and mindsets were molded throughout the year, so winter emerged not as a disruption, but as an extension. You adjust your position once more, gauging the pressure of your form against the soil. The chill no longer nips as sharply as it once did. This catches you off guard. The surroundings haven't altered. The atmosphere grows even icier. In truth, the shift lies within you. Your initial vulnerability has started to adjust your perceptions. Current biology supports this. Ongoing contact with low temperatures can lessen the body's initial alarm over time. Though this knowledge derives from controlled studies, it echoes insights gained through lived practice ages ago. A faint noise close by draws your focus. Not words, but a gentle, patterned outbreath. A person is inhaling via material, measured and intentional. This isn't happenstance. Regulating respiration minimizes fluid evaporation. Fluid poses a threat in the freeze. It saps warmth more rapidly than stagnant air. Once spotted, this nuance seems straightforward, yet it's easily overlooked without intent. Numerous early cultural researchers documented native winter resilience without grasping these finer points. Today's narratives often portray such endurance as bold spontaneity, sharp wits, or ingenious hacks. Yet what unfolds before you is quieter and more reliable. Routine. The sort that embeds itself in the body and operates without deliberate thought. Experts often stress that thriving in harsh environments relies less on spur-of-the-moment ingenuity or emergencies and more on steady preparation beforehand. Frigid evenings honor ingrained practices. You draw your hands nearer to your center almost instinctively. A companion does likewise. No cue prompts it. It simply occurs as routine. This is wisdom passed without formal teaching. One noted cultural study observes that young ones in these societies developed frost resistance not via lectures, but through progressive immersion as they matured. Scholars still debate if this constituted deliberate conditioning or just the byproduct of everyday existence. The terrain below you stays remarkably accommodating. The earth below you offers no heat of its own, yet it avoids sapping your strength like exposed stone might. Folks figured out the best spots to pause, places where the dirt retained warmth the most, or where a layer of snow, if there, served more as a barrier against the chill than an icy trap. An odd habit that lingers in certain northern customs notes how new-fallen snow got swept away at times to uncover deeper, toastier strata underneath. It flies in the face of the urge to steer clear of snow altogether, yet it proved effective. For a moment, your mind drifts to contemporary survival manuals, which fixate on gadgets, specs, and checklists of supplies. Gear exists in this scene as well, but it's woven right into one's actions. Garments are useless without proper timing in your motions. A flame achieves little if left to rage without restraint. Superior fabrics crumble when routines clash with them. Historians continue to argue over this blended method when exploring what builds a society's endurance. Does resilience stem from implements or from routines? Typically, it's a mix, though documenting routines proves more elusive. Gradually, your muscles ease up. Strain ebbs away as your frame senses no pressing danger. This isn't coziness, it's resignation. And resignation saves vitality. Frenzy squanders it. Such a nuance matters immensely, though it's understated. Numerous reports from early European explorers described their shock at the composure of native guides amid hardships the visitors deemed intolerable. That poise wasn't mere courage, it arose from habituation. You tune in once more. The darkness now carries a consistent hum, gusts gliding across gentle contours, cloth rustling faintly. Sporadic stirrings give way to quiet. This pattern turns reliable. Reliability acts like another layer of insulation. It eases the thoughts. It halts the frame from anticipating endless shifts. Scholars keep disputing if chronic cold encounters sparked genuine bodily changes across lineages, or if the edge was purely learned. Certain experts push for group-level evolution. Others claim conduct accounts for almost all of it. The proof doesn't align tidily. Still, stretched out here, the divide seems secondary to the outcome. Survival happens steadily, dependably, sans shelters. Your breaths deepen. Sleep hasn't claimed you, yet you're no longer rigid. The freeze persists, but it's shifted from foe to mere circumstance, a factor you adapt to, not dread. That's the core of the teaching, not via words but through habit. Evening by evening, season by season, the chill ceases to assail you. It turns into a companion you endure. With that change in place, all other challenges lighten. The notion of lacking essentials has faded now. Gone is the habit of peering into the shadows for barriers that won't appear. In their stead, you perceive how heat is subtly handled already. Absent the frameworks you're conditioned to need, the evening presses on methodically, as do those sharing it. You reposition slightly, not from unease, but because minor tweaks seem beneficial. A minor shoulder pivot, a leg tucked in nearer. These shifts are understated, barely noticeable, but their impact registers in your senses. Here, insight dawns. Heat doesn't solely derive from containment. Frequently, it springs from mastery. Mastery over what's revealed, over motion, over moments. It's a well-established historical truth that numerous Native American groups, particularly in the plains, subarctic, and plateau regions, skipped fixed winter dwellings throughout the year. Rather, they employed adaptable ways of dwelling that let them adapt to the elements instead of battling them. Such adaptability often escapes notice since it etches scant visible marks on the landscape. Excavation prioritizes rock and wood. It grapples with customs. You observe the area encircling you lacks clear edges in its arrangement. Individuals cluster near without pressing in, near sufficient for shared warmth to count, distant enough that exhaled air won't moisten communal wraps. This arrangement isn't haphazard. It stems from deep-rooted knowledge of heat's flow. Overly tight and dampness accumulates, too distant and warmth scatters. Achieving equilibrium demanded ages of experimentation, mishaps, and understated refinements. A person close by tweaks the hide, drawing it down tighter versus the draft. The fabric yields smoothly, draping instead of rigidifying. Well-treated animal pelts excel at this. They flex sans splitting. They hold bubbles of unmoving air. A less highlighted note from archival records points out that pelts were chosen and stacked according to their origin on the beast. Fur from the underside acts unlike that from the spine. Such nuanced grasp of substances seldom surfaces in basic retellings. Yet it was vital. You sense the general hush among the group now. Before, there'd been more activity, minor chores, last verifications. Presently, stirrings have dwindled to a bare minimum. That's by design. Movement produces warmth, yet it consumes energy too. The darkness of night calls for careful preservation. Experts on everyday existence in history agree that enduring winter hinged equally on managing energy as on staying physically warm. Sustenance, rest, and activity all factored into that equation. The lack of fire stands out more sharply at this point, not from longing, but because the choice to forego it seems purposeful. Flames draw people together at a focal point, yet they require wood, vigilance, and potential hazard. Numerous communities reserved fires for particular occasions instead of keeping them going nonstop. Certain narratives recount brief, makeshift sources of heat for thawing fingers or equipment, then permitted to dim out. Whether this practice prioritized thrift or security remains a topic of discussion among scholars. You tune into the breeze once more. Its direction has shifted just a bit. Insufficient to cause worry, but sufficient to catch. It's the gusts, more than the chill in the air, that truly amplify the cold. Shielding against them counts for more than enclosing a larger area. That's the reason a minor depression in the terrain can serve as an effective barrier. You're positioned where the air current passes above, avoiding a direct hit. This unassuming decision, so basic it almost goes unnoticed, ranks among the strongest protections in this landscape. A peculiar detail from certain spoken traditions notes how seasoned leaders could forecast perilous evenings based on the evening smoke patterns. When it hugged the ground swiftly rather than ascending, they altered their readying. Pinpointing if this was accurate weather reading or honed instinct proves tricky. Academics keep debating the extent to which such insights stemmed from observation versus deeper significance. The key point is their reliability earned them respect. Your form eases further into quietude. Limbs that gripped tightness earlier now relax. This calm isn't slumber approaching. It's a deliberate wait, a suspension. It lets body heat accumulate steadily instead of surging and vanishing. Contemporary tips for wilderness endurance mirror this idea, presenting it more as a skill than a routine. In this context, it's merely the standard way to navigate the nights. Wait, nights. For a moment, you reflect on how arriving Europeans frequently portrayed native inhabitants as wanderers with a sneer, implying constant motion meant chaos. Yet what unfolds for you presently reveals the contrary. Travel was calculated. Immobility was deliberate. Everything in this scene appears intentional. Researchers now emphasize that such adaptability signaled profound attunement to the surroundings, rather than any absence of fixed roots. The earth under you keeps contributing. It doesn't sap your heat as fiercely as anticipated. Strata of plants, dirt, and snow, if available, serve as insulators. Folks discerned which grounds leached warmth quickest and which resisted. They steered clear of exposed rock during the freeze. They favored compacted soil or matted foliage. These preferences were shared through living, not charts or gauges. They were embodied wisdom. You regulate your inhales to a gentler pace, fuller depth. Exhaled air lingers within the cloth. Any dampness forms distant from your flesh instead of clinging. Another overlooked yet vital aspect. In this realm, dampness poses a greater threat than mere low temperatures. Plenty of initial eyewitnesses observed how native wayfarers withstood frosts that locked European equipment in ice. The distinction frequently boiled down to handling humidity. As darkness steadies, an understated truth dawns on you. Warmth doesn't crash in suddenly. No sudden turn. Rather, it's a slow awareness that the dropping sensation has halted. You've reached equilibrium. The aim of surviving isn't to get toasty, it's to halt the ongoing drain. Debates persist among historians on whether this method of facing the freeze shows environmental adjustment or a larger philosophy favoring harmony over control. The truth probably blends both, but stretched out here, its potency feels real. No barriers, no structures, just expertise layered thoughtfully over the form. And as time elongates, shelter shifts in your mind from a location to a method, one you're immersed in already. The evening has woven into you, not overcome, not vanquished, merely embraced. Such embrace alters your perceptions. The load of your attire registers differently now, less as garb and more as a mobile enclosure that shifts with your motions and quiets in repose. It dawns that what clings to your skin outweighs any constructed surround. Over vast stretches of North America, communities depended on outfits as their main bulwark against the bitter, particularly on journeys or in migratory phases. This draws from evidence, not guesswork. Preserved attire, first-hand accounts, and meticulous recreations all align. Attire served as protection foremost, adornment secondary, a core element subtly threaded through both. You ease your shoulders a touch and sense the layers adapt. They yield without friction. They glide, layer upon layer. Then realign. That pliancy isn't happenstance. Rigidity holds on to dampness. Pliancy captures air pockets. When that air remains trapped, it generates heat. This fundamental idea shaped selections of fabrics long prior to its ever being articulated in formal scientific terms. What catches you off guard is the surprising lightness of it all, far removed from your preconceptions. There's no oppressive weight bearing down, no feeling of being encased in bulky material. Rather, the heat spreads out uniformly, in equilibrium. Layering plays a key role here, not piling on for mere volume, but arranging purposefully for effectiveness. The innermost layers wick away sweat. The outermost ones repel gusts. In the spaces between, air remains undisturbed. A detail frequently missed in accounts from the past is how these outfits were crafted for ongoing tweaks. Cuffs, cinched or relaxed. Necklines reposition, hoods flipped up or down. Such adaptations let individuals adapt to minor shifts in the chill without stripping off pieces altogether. It's a minor adjustment, yet over an extended evening, these tweaks build up to mean the difference between life and death. The varied feels of the fabrics stand out sharper to you at this moment. Certain spots are sleek and supple from repeated wear. Others are coarser, built to endure the elements on the exterior. Furs are oriented variably based on their spot. Accounts from various areas highlight an intriguing practice. Pelts with the undercoat against the skin provided extra insulation in brutal freezes, whereas the outer hair facing out proved superior against slushy precipitation. Scholars debate if this was a widespread custom or differed across communities, but the trial and error process behind it is beyond dispute. Lying there with scarcely a stir, it dawns on you that these garments stand in for buildings. They foster tiny insulated zones around limbs, vital areas, and flesh. The human form serves as the core, rather than any enclosed space. This upends contemporary notions. Heat isn't about warming an area and then inhabiting it. It's portable, safeguarded, and extended to others only as needed. You sense how scant the uncovered areas are. Not oppressively so, but deliberately. Wrists, feet, throat, Features: these spots shed warmth fast. They're tended with particular care. A minor repositioning of cloth across the lips alters the sensation of your breathing. It preconditions the incoming air for your chest. Chroniclers from the outset noted this repeatedly, though they seldom grasped its significance. A few experts posit that such attire embodied centuries of fieldwork as methodical as lab experiments. Still, some warn against idealizing it as flawless or all-encompassing. Undeniably, though, these patterns developed via practical application, not abstract ideas. Mistakes instructed just as vitally as triumphs. You recall today's insulated jackets that rely solely on padding for coziness. They're effective, but conditionally. In this setup, heft comes second. How it conforms is primary. Mobility ranks higher. Most crucial is the option to release excess heat momentarily, preventing it from condensing into peril. Perspiration poses a threat. It solidifies afterward. Sidestepping it demands ongoing, subtle vigilance. An underappreciated remark from old-time pelt merchants points out that native escorts fiddled far less with their garb than their European counterparts, despite harsher conditions. They avoided overheating during exertion, thus staving off rapid cooling at halts. This moderation passed for toughness, yet it stemmed from exactitude. Your form echoes that pattern presently. You forgo hunching overly. Rigid postures hinder blood flow. Flow distributes heat. You remain huddled yet relaxed. This equilibrium seems instinctive, despite no guidance. The evening breeze skims your exterior and passes by. Gusts locate no gaps to exploit. All edges interlock sufficiently. You grasp that joins are critical. Careless overlaps let warmth flee. Traditional makers focused intently on these connections. Sewing served beyond aesthetics. It ensured integrity. Fabrics were picked for resilience against strain, wetness, and frost. Debates persist among experts on regional differences and the pace of innovation sharing. Certain views hold that parallel styles arose separately in diverse weathers. Others propose extensive sharing via commerce and unions. Reality probably blends the two. What reaches you is the outcome of numerous makers tackling parallel challenges. The quiet intensifies once more. Nearby motions are sparse. Folks rely on their wraps to perform. Such confidence builds from endless evenings. Breakdowns get etched in memory, refined, refitted. Wisdom clings to the physique, given the swift price of oversight. You perceive the frieze no longer seeps through. It bears down externally and halts. That barrier, unseen, exists palpably. Attire has set a limit, sans erecting barriers. That's precisely why dwellings weren't essential always. Portable haven renders fixedness elective. Adaptability turns into resilience. You might bed down here this evening and elsewhere next without forfeiting safeguard. As time elongates ahead, you cease dwelling on absences. You begin to appreciate the elements that function so effectively. Heat doesn't proclaim its presence noisily. It lingers steadily, enveloped in coverings crafted through years of deep acquaintance with harsh winters. You settle into an enclosure that rises and falls with your own breaths, quieting as you do. It's a dwelling that shifts alongside you, silently warding off the chill until dawn arrives. The extended time you spend reclined there heightens your awareness that true warmth stems not merely from donning attire, but from its composition and the reasoning behind its selection. Darkness has a knack for honing focus. You start picking up on nuances that might have escaped you before. delicate variations in feel and heft that suggest deliberate choices from well before this night unfolded. It's common knowledge now that Native American endurance through winter relied profoundly on profound familiarity with animal-based resources. This wasn't merely one ability, but a multifaceted expertise encompassing pursuit, treatment, and application. Fur, feather, sinew, and fiber weren't equivalents. Each possessed distinct qualities crucial when the mercury plummeted and activity diminished. You sense the varied responses of fur based on its placement. Certain areas seem compact and unmoving, while others offer a lighter, more permeable sensation. Such design is deliberate. Pelts from various creatures, and even varying sections of one beast, capture air through singular mechanisms. Guard hairs on the back are typically extended and more impervious to elements. Underbelly fur provides greater softness and insulation, though it's not as robust. These differences influenced the construction of clothing. A curious observation noted by initial chroniclers involves interleaving feathers amid skins in specific areas, particularly abundant in waterfowl habitats. Feathers provided bulk with minimal added mass. They also evaporated moisture swiftly. This method appears remarkably contemporary, mirroring principles in today's insulating materials. Whether it was a common practice or confined to select communities is still contested, yet its practicality is hard to refute. You observe that every component here seems purposeful, without superfluous ornamentation lacking utility. Even embellishments typically serve dual roles in strengthening or securing. Beads weigh down edges to prevent gusts from billowing them up. Tassels disrupt airflow. To an unfamiliar eye, these might appear purely ornamental, but they execute essential tasks throughout the darkness. A subtle aroma lingers in the air around you, subtle yet unmistakable. Soil, tanned leather, and the echo of past fires. This odor isn't accidental. The smoking of skins aided in their longevity and bolstered defenses against dampness and pests. It altered their performance in frigid conditions, too. Certain studies propose that treated hides retained greater pliability in sub-zero climes, minimizing splits. Counterarguments claim the impact was slight. Undeniably, though, the method was esteemed and routinely employed. You ponder the extensive duration required to amass such expertise. Experimentation and mishaps spanned countless seasons. An inadequately cured hide didn't simply underperform, it imperiled the user. Those experiences endured sharply in memory. They molded habits, methods, and even prohibitions related to crafting. Your form stays enveloped by these substances as the chill intensifies, and you perceive their adaptability to the dropping degrees. They avoid rigid hardening. They flex with your movements, then realign smoothly. This adaptability prevents openings from emerging. Openings invite the frost to infiltrate. Vegetable elements contribute as well. Despite the season, reeds, tree bark strands, and plaited pads are frequently positioned under sleepers or amid layers of apparel. They block direct chill from the earth and facilitate a soft airflow instead of rapid heat loss. Excavations often uncover traces of these pads, compressed by ages, but evidently crafted with intent. They seldom garner spotlight in exhibits, though their significance runs profound. Experts debate the degree to which these selections arose from surroundings or customs. Were optimal materials adopted due to proximity or long-standing convention? Responses vary by locale. In certain territories, adaptations to fresh supplies occurred promptly. Elsewhere, Proven approaches endured despite emerging options. You come to see these substances as active partners, demanding maintenance, drying, washing, mending. Thriving through winter hinged on preparatory efforts during milder times as surely as on immediate strategies. Insulation was readied far ahead. This anticipation is frequently overlooked in condensed accounts that emphasize thrilling episodes over patient groundwork. Close by, an individual tweaks a wrap with a distinct grain from your own. It produces a gentler rustle. You can nearly detect the breeze filtering through it at a leisurely pace. Such diversity stems from individual tastes, ancestral practices, and what's on hand. No universal ideal configuration existed. Numerous viable approaches did. The evening stays hushed. The freeze bears down consistently, yet it no longer seems invasive. It's repelled by thoughtful selections honed through repetition. Survival no longer occupies your thoughts. Balance does. These fabrics and hides don't offer the kind of ease we're used to today. Instead, they deliver dependability. They won't banish the chill entirely, but they keep it in check, right on the edge. That difference is key. Ease can break easily, while dependability stands the test of time. As you sink further into your setup, the separate elements blend together seamlessly. The woolen strands, down insulation, leather shells. Each element performs its role quietly, without fanfare. It's this seamless harmony that enabled folks to travel, pause, and rest right out in the open, in places that seem brutal to those from afar. And as the darkness lingers, a subtle respect grows for the wisdom woven into these choices. Skills honed by skilled fingers, proven across countless seasons of frost, shared through stories rather than blueprints or guides. Right now, it cradles you softly, while the freeze lingers beyond, watchful yet restrained. At this stage, something that might have shocked you before begins to feel ordinary. The lack of a blaze doesn't seem odd anymore. Once you see it, it's tough to shake the sense that it's deliberate. Sure, the evening bites with cold, but it's consistent. No wavering lights. No interruptions pulling your focus. The shadows stay even, and the chill around you holds steady too. It's widely known that in various Native American groups, an open flame wasn't a steady presence on winter evenings. Flames pack power, yet they exact a toll. They burn through resources fast, need constant vigilance, and when they die down, the returning cold hits harder than if you'd skipped them from the start. This lesson sinks in gradually, over endless evenings, until holding back turns into second nature. You tune in and grasp just how hushed the world is sans fire. No crackling logs, no glowing coals stirring, only the soft rush of breeze across the earth and the subtle rhythm of breaths close by. That hush is vital. Serenity saves strength. It lets your form relax rather than tense against surprises. Naturally, there were times when a fire proved essential. Implements had to thaw, fingers revived, meals readied. Yet these were deliberate choices. The flame would ignite, serve its purpose, then fade away. It functioned as a utility, not the heart of things. Certain pioneers documented their bewilderment at such habits. Figuring flames were going to waste, they overlooked the rhythm of it all. A fascinating note crops up in various local histories. Modest warming spots were occasionally set up near extremities, like feet or palms, only to be taken apart before bedding down. The heat would seep into the soil and wrappings instead of hanging as open burn. Scholars still debate if this leaned more toward caution or thrift, but the result was understated and enduring. You're sensing that very result at this moment. The earth under you retains a trace of earlier heat from a fire lit before dusk. It's no inferno, just a notch warmer than the rest. That's plenty. Flames also stir motion. Folks gravitate to them, twisting and vying for spots. Lacking that pull, forms spread out more fairly. Warmth circulates through proximity, not rivalry. This shifts group interactions in subtle, significant fashions. A few experts propose that evenings free of a main fire fostered subdued bonds. Some say it was all about utility. Reality probably mixes the two. Your frame attunes to this even keel. Inhales grow fuller. Sinews let go of their final strains. No reason to watch for flares or haze. Haze, in particular, gets shunned come dark. It stings the sight, soaks into gear, and marks paths with odor. Sidestepping it cuts down on irritation and hazards both. You reflect on today's outdoor tips that push for all-night fires. Those stem from another take on resources, room, and threats. Out here, timber counts, hours matter, rest is precious, flame has to earn its keep. The gust veers once more, hardly felt. Absent fire, the change comes soft, not startling. No big upheavals. Such evenness marks yet another understated perk of going without blaze. Swings in chill stay measured. Measured shifts are simpler to handle. Experts still spar over flame use through the night across locales and weathers. In brutal freezes, steady warmth might have been vital. In gentler chills, it got passed over. Digs reveal old fire pits as hints, though they can't reveal evening by evening calls. Those dwelled in routines, not writings. You ease further into calm and sense the freeze has leveled off once more. It bears down, yet doesn't encroach. A fire might repel it briefly, but with a price tag. This approach maintains the boundary. Close at hand, another person repositions thoughtfully, shunning abrupt shifts. Motion breeds rub. Rub breeds warmth, sure, but sweat too. Sweat saps heat down the line. All of this hinges on timing. Actions today shape comfort far into the future. Flame fits spells of effort. Evening fits preservation. Embracing that split just feels right. You cease anticipating heat from external sources and instead rely on the setup already in place. Overhead, the sky stays crisp and unclouded. Stars remain fixed in position, free from any rising haze. They serve as reliable markers, unmoving. Long ago, these same stars directed journeys and signaled seasonal shifts. On this evening, they merely observe while you settle in. As the hours elongate, it dawns on you that generating warmth isn't always necessary. At times, safeguarding it suffices. Flames produce heat, yet quietude retains it, enveloped in deliberately selected coverings, arranged with care, and bolstered by time-honored routines. You recline silently amid the chill, not heated by firelight, but upheld by moderation. The darkness accommodates this setup, maintaining it for the present. Now the terrain beneath you comes into sharper focus, not merely as a base, but as an ally in your efforts. Before you might have viewed the soil as frigid, burdensome, and sapping, yet it now seems more reliable than the breeze, nearly forbearing. This change in viewpoint is crucial since the Earth's surface often determines the night's outcome. Ancestors discovered that resting elevated above the ground tended to be chillier than integrating with it. This counterintuitive insight recurs in detailed recreations of seasonal encampments. Chilly winds circulate and gather in hollows. The soil, when insulated appropriately, clings to the lingering daytime warmth much longer than the exposed heavens do. You're not lying directly on exposed dirt. Intentional barriers separate you from it. Those barriers make themselves known to you presently. Botanical materials conceal interlaced strands. Each one disrupts thermal transfer subtly, not seizing it tightly, but impeding its departure. This moderation proves vital. Gradual dissipation of warmth allows for control, while abrupt leaks do not. Such wisdom wasn't gleaned from abstract ideas. It stemmed from chilled forms, sleepless vigils, and indelible hardships. A detail frequently missed in historical analyses is the precise selection of sleep sites within varied terrains. In colder months, subtle elevations were shunned. Depressions that shielded against gusts were preferred. Compacted soil functioned unlike shifting sands. Even iced surfaces differed. Those examining ancient camp layouts have observed multi-generational reuse of particular winter rest spots, indicating these decisions were passed down and relied upon. You shift your stance once more, guided more by reflex than deliberation, bringing additional parts of yourself into alignment with the insulated earth. This expands the contact zone. It also evens out your body heat. Detached extremities chill more rapidly. Anchored ones preserve warmth extendedly. The physique grasps such principles prior to the intellect articulating them. Nearby, a faint noise emerges as another person adjusts their padding. The strands whisper briefly before quieting. Interlaced rests crafted from vegetation, stalks, or peels. Such weaves surface in digs more commonly than anticipated. Though seldom highlighted, they were indispensable. They formed insulating voids. They blocked dampness from ascending. They transformed the surface from peril to buffer. A peculiar custom from certain areas borders on the illogical. Pads were occasionally permitted to chill prior to use, rather than preheated near flames. Overheating invited humidity. That humidity would solidify afterward. Aligning the items with ambient cold minimized moisture buildup. Scholars still debate if this was deliberate or habitual, but its utility is undeniable. Utility demands recognition. You sense the profound hush enveloping all now. Forms barely stir. The earth fulfills its function. Stirring would disrupt this equilibrium. Restraint upholds it. Contemporary studies on rest discuss optimal thermal ranges, yet those ranges were uncovered here via direct trials, absent diagrams. Your back eases, tensions ease. No sore spot demands relief. Ease in this context is subdued, not opulent. It bolsters rather than envelops. This distinction counts during extended dark hours. Bolstering wards off weariness. Weariness prompts shifting. Shifting courts frost. Initial outsiders from afar frequently misconstrued this bond with the land. Used to elevated platforms and furnishings, they deemed ground-level repose a trial. Elevated setups, however, left the form vulnerable to circulating drafts from every angle. They also stripped away the Earth's anchoring influence. Certain newcomers gradually incorporated local winter rest methods, even if they rarely confessed it. You detect the subtle, persistent aroma of soil. It anchors you both physically and psychologically. Recognizable odors soothe the nerves. This soothing curbs wasteful thermal drain from tension. Though unphrased thus then, the benefit endured. Scholars continue arguing over the dissemination of such expertise, whether widespread or confined to kin and clans. Some indicators suggest area-wide norms. Others imply site-specific tastes. Regardless, the reliable outcomes reflect painstaking evolution across eras. Your breath aligns with the surrounding hush, drawing in steadily or exhaling just as gently. As it travels through the insulating fabrics, it carries a touch of warmth back to your skin. This simple rhythm helps ward off the bite of frost on your face and torso. The face, after all, stays exposed, bearing the brunt of the elements. The darkness of night intensifies a notch further. Stars hold their positions overhead. The chill bears down once more, probing for weaknesses, yet everything endures. The earth beneath doesn't siphon away your heat too abruptly. The clothing stays intact. The setup proves resilient. It's at this point that contemporary thinking frequently stumbles. We chase flashy fixes, elaborate enclosures, ingenious gadgets. Yet enduring the cold typically hinged on subtle, understated choices. Selecting the ideal spot, arranging insulation properly, halting activity precisely when needed. No lone item shoulders the entire burden here. The heat you preserve arises from the interplay of your form, your gear, and the terrain. Each element bolsters the others. Disrupt one, and equilibrium tilts. In unison, they forge a reliable haven for rest. Lying there, the soil shifts in your perception from mere ground to a reliable ally. It cushions your weight. It returns body heat gradually. It demands no reciprocity. Over time, folks came to rely on it, and that reliance paid dividends through countless chilly evenings. For an instant, the cold fades from your thoughts, not vanished, but managed effectively. This marks the subtle triumph of embracing the earth for slumber instead of resisting it. As time drifts onward at its leisurely pace, you stay composed, upheld and secure, cradled not apart from the soil, but enfolded in its subtle embrace. Midway through the darkness, the environment itself joins in sustaining you. You sense this shift not visually, but through feel. The frost alters its character. It's less piercing, less agitated. A subtle change envelops you, and it takes a couple of measured inhales to pinpoint it. Snowfall has begun to accumulate. Before, fresh flakes might have appeared as a foe, icy, damp, unyielding. Yet as they drift down softly, they rewrite the conditions. Those seasoned by endless seasons grasped this truth deeply. New snow captures air pockets much like animal pelts do. Left untouched, it drapes over the landscape like a soft cover. Far from mere fancy, this holds up to scrutiny. Later studies show that spots under snow cover maintain temperatures markedly warmer than the open air. You register the impact right away. The breeze dulls its sting. Circulation of air eases. Noises muffle. The whole evening seems hushed, as if swaddled. Beyond hiding things, snow provides thermal protection. You observe that no one scrambles to clear it off. There's no hurried flinging aside of wraps. Flurries are permitted to build in spots where they won't interfere. On the exterior fabrics or empty areas, never right on the body but near enough to aid. Such caution counts. Compacted flakes outperform scattered ones. Generations figured out the wisdom in letting it be. In certain far northern territories, a curious custom emerged, gently heaping snow on the side facing the wind near rest zones, forming modest mounds that served as windbreaks. These weren't built fortifications, merely gentle diversions of the gusts sufficient to alter conditions. Accounts differ on whether this was widespread or occasional, but the idea recurs often. You inhale deeply and sense the atmosphere growing more even. Snow quiets echoes and movement alike. That serenity circles back to your frame. Tension eases off. With reduced tension comes lower exertion. Lower exertion preserves more heat. The sequence is straightforward yet profound. Scholars still debate the frequency of intentionally harnessing snow this way versus merely accepting it. Some contend it was seized upon opportunistically. Others view it as an incidental perk rather than a planned tactic. Undeniable, though, is that snow wasn't universally dreaded. It was comprehended. Your form adapts once more, so faintly you scarcely notice. You dip your chin a bit. Exhaled air heats up before escaping your lips. The nearby drifts swallow noise and repel the freeze away from you. They form a modest zone of steadiness. You're not entombed, you're shielded. Today's perspectives commonly portray snow as a peril to flee. Yet in this context, it integrates into the protective framework, a silent ally that shows up unbidden, needing no fuel or toil. You ponder fleetingly how European chroniclers often labeled native winter journeys as foolhardy or unattainable. Such views typically stemmed from witnesses who battled the drifts relentlessly. They treated it as a barrier. They overlooked ways to mold it, guide it, or even invite it. Snow transforms illumination too. Lunar glow scatters gently. Outlines blur. The evening loses its severity. This softer sight fosters inner peace. Your physiology reacts accordingly. Repose arrives more readily in a world stripped of edges. Certain wise ones instructed against ever reviling the snow. It might seem metaphorical, but it stems from hands-on reverence. Rivers sustained by snow, roots shielded by it. Camps insulated in its embrace. Viewing snow as a partner fostered thoughtful engagement over frantic resistance. You sense the chill under your coverings steadying once more. Not climbing, not dropping, just steady. Achieving that steady state is the aim. Enduring the night means attaining balance and maintaining it. Nearby, a gentle rustle occurs as someone repositions a shelter, letting the snow settle more uniformly atop it. Nobody brushes it away, nobody grumbles. The noise fades quickly into silence. Snow also conceals odors and noises. When it descends, predators alter their patterns. This lessens the demand for constant watchfulness. Less watchfulness permits profounder repose. Repose renews vigor for the coming day. All elements interlink. Studies of winter encampments reveal that certain sites saw repeated use solely under ideal snow patterns. This indicates an awareness not merely of snow in isolation, but of its rhythms. The timing of snow's arrival counted. Its manner of arrival counted too. Gentle flurries offered aid. Thick, damp falls posed distinct hurdles. As the evening advances, distinct snowflakes blur from your awareness. You perceive solely the outcome. The surrounding atmosphere seems cushioned. The frost stays distanced, kept at bay. Here is an instance where endurance unfolds without spectacle. No battle, no victory. Merely serene harmony between your form and the surroundings. What was once snow's terror now serves as a barrier. You rest there, enveloped in wrappings crafted by skilled hands and time-tested ways, with snow lightly layering over and beside you, performing its subtle duty. The terrain has contributed its own padding, unsolicited and subtle. And as time slips forward, the darkness seems less vulnerable, gentler, subdued. You are not concealed from existence, but cradled inside it, kept warmer, not in spite of the snow, but in part thanks to it. As the hours unfold further, a key insight emerges. It's not just the mercury that dictates your sense of chill. The true influencer, circling invisibly all this while, has been the breeze. It sneaks through openings, steals body heat, and transforms tolerable frost into piercing urgency. Once attuned to it, you grasp why tonight's prior decisions centered on air currents, not mere warmth. Those who weathered endless winters knew this from the start. Deflecting wind outweighed staving off cold. A static pool of frigid air can be borne. Flowing, frigid air cannot. This wisdom shaped their halts, their reclining postures, and their scant constructions. Narratives from varied areas consistently depict sites chosen not for scenery or ease, but for how the earth disrupted gusts. You experience it presently. When a gust glides across the surface overhead, instead of piercing towards you, the shift is instant. Your flesh eases, tendons loosen, the chill dulls rather than stings. This isn't fancy. Gusts amplify warmth escape via convection exponentially. Tempering them alters the landscape. You had glimpsed subtle terrain hollows before, and now you value them deeply. Even a minor elevation of mere inches can divert airflow sufficiently to safeguard a sleeping figure. Such locales lingered in collective recall. Groups revisited them year upon year. Digs occasionally uncover concentrations of seasonal outposts in the same locales spanning eras. These weren't chance occurrences. They represented lore etched in minds. A curious trait appears in certain local customs. Makeshift barriers from foliage, pelts, or compacted snow tilt instead of standing upright. That tilt was crucial. Vertical blocks stirred eddies. Slanted ones steered winds aside, avoiding sudden halts. Such fluid air savvy predated its formal naming. You merely angle your back a touch more squarely against the wind's origin. No guidance is needed. The effect registers at once. The material over your shoulders stirs less. The breeze by your features quiets. This reflex, honed through endless evenings, became second nature. Outsiders from Europe frequently misread these simple gust shields, deeming them unfinished havens. They anticipated full enclosures. They overlooked purpose. A setup doesn't require total containment to defend. It must merely disrupt currents aptly. Your breaths stay measured. Serene airflow eases even breaths. Even breaths limit dampness. Dampness beckons deeper chill ahead. Once more, links form everywhere. Scholars still debate the uniformity of gust handling methods among various peoples. Some clues hint at core ideas with regional tweaks. Others indicate tailored fixes molded by unique terrains. Truth may lie in both. The unifying strand is vigilance. Winds were observed, sensed, recalled. You attend sharply and detect altered acoustics. Strong drafts propel noises afar. As they ebb near you, silence deepens. This hush isn't mere tranquility. It heralds steadiness. Stability makes rest possible. You reflect on how contemporary structures typically resist the wind with unyielding seals and barriers. That approach suits regulated settings. But in this vast openness, adaptability prevails. Allowing the wind to flow through harmless paths avoids building up damaging pressure in other spots. Flexible shields conform to the gusts. Inflexible ones shatter or give way. Certain elders pass down the wisdom that one ought never confront the wind head-on. Instead, it must be steered gently. This guidance carries a deeper wisdom, yet it's grounded in real-world insights. Battling the wind drains resources. Channeling it saves them. You sense your body heat, holding steady once more. The chill doesn't intensify. It lingers at a tolerable threshold for your physiology. This evenness stems from countless minor choices stacked upon one another, none flashy, yet each proving useful. Nearby, there's a slight rustle as another person tweaks a shelter to seal a tiny opening. The action is quick, deliberate. Openings invite the wind inside. Sealing them matters more than piling on extra insulation. Experts on enduring harsh winters tend to focus on attire, flames, and sustenance. Managing airflow gets overlooked since it doesn't leave obvious remnants. Still, right here under the cover of darkness, it seems like the key challenge. You lie with your back guarded, your torso wrapped in protective folds, your flanks cushioned by unmoving air. The setup endures. The gusts glide overhead, stripped of their punch against you. That's the reason shelters weren't always essential. Handled well, the cold turns foreseeable. Foreseeable chill invites preparation. Prepared for cold turns endurable. With time slipping by, the faint drafts fade from your awareness. Not vanished, but irrelevant. They've been handled, rerouted, tamed, not through force, but through quiet strategy, enveloped in tranquility, shielded not by barriers, but by insight. You stay composed as darkness deepens, winds wandering off, powerless to claim what you've safeguarded with care. Now you sense the others around you in a gentle, unobtrusive manner. Before, they registered as outlines and murmurs. Now, they're presences of warmth, placed with precision in the layout, not clustered chaotically, not spread too thin, but aligned purposefully. This positioning ranks among those understated arts that surface only in the night's unforgiving clarity. Long ago, folks discovered that heat amplifies when distributed with intention. A lone body emits warmth steadily. That warmth dissipates into the void. In company, it persists. Though company isn't about entanglement, excess contact breeds dampness and hampers motion. Too much separation squanders heat. Striking the balance demanded trial and adjustment. You experience it in your current pose, near enough to keep the intervening air serene, distant enough for unhindered breaths. No one spells out this positioning. It's sensed, refined, ingrained. Gradually, it turns second nature. Everyday existence shows that braving winter seldom hinged on solo endeavors. Even beneath personal wraps, individuals stayed woven into a communal framework. Heat circulated subtly via nearness, synchronization, and mutual quietude. Such teamwork needed no ongoing chatter. It thrived on confidence forged well ahead of dusk. A soft sigh drifts from a neighbor, more measured than earlier. Breath patterns start to harmonize. This syncing occurs on its own. Serenity propagates. As one eases into repose, the rest echo suit. This collective tempo curbs abrupt shifts. Fewer shifts retain heat. The sequence persists. A noteworthy custom crops up in various local accounts. Folks tended to arrange themselves head to toe, avoiding side-by-side alignment. This minimized breath mingling while sustaining proximity. It also evened out heat distribution across the frame. Accounts differ on whether this was standard or contextual, but its rationale shines through once you sense it in action. You realize your feet are cozier now than at first, not overheated, merely fortified. This shift wasn't from extra wrappings. It arose from communal tranquil air. The surrounding area has altered in texture. Visitors frequently misread native winter evenings as cramped or uneasy, overlooking the intent. They saw nearness as absent solitude. They overlooked utility. Solitude takes a different shape when endurance relies on synergy. Room isn't for seclusion. It's for equilibrium. You hold steady, mindful that even minor stirs echo across the assembly. This mindfulness fosters caution. Caution fosters moderation. Moderation safeguards warmth. Each element bolsters the rest. Scholars still debate the structure of these setups. Some posit deliberate, handed-down formations. Others claim they arose organically from trial and mishap. Reality likely blends both. Crucially, the results proved dependable. You ponder for a moment the current ways of bedding down that prioritize isolation. Solo mattresses, solo chambers. Such arrangements function well inside warm structures. In this exposed place, however, they'd prove wasteful. By pooling together, each person lightens the load on their own physiology. The earth under you reasserts its solid, reassuring presence. Over you, coverings cling securely. The cluster of forms a gentle shield from the drifting breeze. Chill advances, yet finds slimmer roots to penetrate. A companion close by adjusts position just a bit, then settles. The shift seems deliberate, nearly remorseful. Even as slumber nears, this sensitivity to those around endures. It's woven into the setup. Disturbing the equilibrium is the last thing anyone desires. Curious observations in certain winter records point out how folks occasionally align their bedtime routines on purpose, steering clear of piecemeal bedding down. Once the whole group lay down simultaneously, shared body heat evened out more swiftly. Intentional or just routine, it's hard to say for sure, though the impact surely stood out. You're sensing it at this moment. Darkness has settled into equilibrium. The chill encircling you seems contained, without wild swings. Such steadiness enables true relaxation. Your limbs ease deeper into repose. Aggressively defending your spot isn't required. The collective offers safeguard. Embracing this common exposure fosters reliance. Reliance eases tension. Less tension helps retain heat. Certain contemporary experts propose that these collaborative heat-sharing tactics could have shaped community ties extending past the season's hardships. Where endurance hinges on constant group vigilance, connections grow stronger. Detractors warn against overgeneralizing from sleep habits in isolation. Even so, the link rings true. Lying in this spot, you sense your mind easing to a crawl. The silent company nearby instills security. Solitude doesn't haunt the blackness. Instead, you're woven into a thoughtfully organized and subtly upheld whole. Gusts might still whip beyond. Flakes keep drifting down. Yet in this communal nook, the surroundings stay cushioned. Twilight bears down, but stays at bay. It's yet one more explanation why shelters weren't always essential. When folks grasp self-organization, they forge organic barriers via teamwork, not building. With moments lengthening, you edge toward slumber, cradled beyond mere fabrics and terrain, but by the precise alignment of fellow humans collaborating. Heat in this realm belongs to all, unhoarded, distributed, not possessed. Within this wordless intimacy, free of barriers, the darkness unfolds evenly and endurably, just as it has through endless prior seasons. As hours extend into the gloom, warmth emerges from an intangible source, beyond direct sight or grasp. It arises neither from the soil, the atmosphere, nor your neighbors. It originates within, faint initially, then reliable. While you unwind, your form performs its silent labor. Ages before dietary guides or energy tallies appeared, Folks' new intake shaped overnight resilience. No lab coats framed it, just embodied truth. Demanding toil, extended journeys, and icy evenings called for sustenance that smoldered steadily and profoundly. Pre-bedtime eats were selected thoughtfully, beyond flavor, considering their delayed effects. You're experiencing those effects presently. No abrupt blaze or twitchy glow arrives. Rather, a gradual, trustworthy diffusion radiates from your center to the edges. Fats, proteins, and hearty victuals dissolve methodically to yield this. It prevents core heat from plummeting rapidly when activity halts. Folks commonly picture native cold season eating as meager or frantic. Such views overlook key backdrop. Pursuit, curing, and foresight aligned precisely with frosty needs. Jerked flesh, extracted oils, and cached tubers weren't panic provisions. They served as calculated energy. Early chroniclers often expressed astonishment at the endurance from these items, despite modest helpings. Distraction from appetite eludes you entirely. That's by design. Dozing on an empty stomach amid freeze risks peril. Vitality depletes too soon. Over time, groups mastered consuming adequately prior to downtime, even amid scarcity. This equilibrium of thrift and imperative came from hard-won trials beyond abstract ideas. A faint glow now tingles in your fingers, absent before, modest yet sufficient. Circulation ramps up amid ongoing breakdown of food. The system favors core functions first, then extends to outer limbs as poise rebuilds. Once underway, this sequence unfolds intuitively. An underplayed note surfaces in various cold weather tales. Certain bands shunned piping hot eats just prior to bedding. Scorching bites triggered perspiration. That moisture cooled harshly afterward. Tepid, substantial fare proved superior. Prevalence varied by locale, whether routine or circumstantial, yet the reasoning endures. You stay motionless, permitting the process to proceed. Stirring would redirect resources. Immobility lets temperature accumulate softly. Such forbearance yields gains incrementally. Today's biology terms it thermogenesis, yet no label was ever required. They understood that sensation intimately and relied on it without question. The physical form integrated into the overall protective setup, producing heat internally instead of depending only on outer protections. Historians continue to debate the extent of regional differences in winter diets and their adaptability during shortages. Certain clues point to impressive flexibility, while others indicate rigid cycles tied to the seasons. Regardless, the focus on advanced planning stays constant. Preparations for winter heat started well in advance, involving drying racks, storage pits, and thoughtful allocation of supplies. A subtle weight eases into your arms and legs, not exhaustion, but satisfaction. This satisfaction fosters rest. Rest enables healing. Healing ensures you endure the coming day. Every connection counts. Close by. Mizamon breathes out gently and adjusts a bit before going motionless once more. Eating has concluded for everyone now. That phase is done until morning, yet the heat it generates persists independently. You reflect on how contemporary society tends to divide meals, slumber, and endurance into separate realms. In this world, those boundaries dissolve. Nourishment isn't mere solace. It's foundational. It bolsters the darkness much like beams uphold a ceiling. Certain scholars propose that seasonal feeding habits affected group dynamics, influencing moments of assembly, distribution, and downtime. Counter-arguments claim such links are exaggerated. Reclining here, you sense the profound bond between sustenance and heat. The chill beyond lingers, yet it seems farther away. Your center remains stable. Your respiration stays measured. The process of breaking down food murmurs softly under the surface. Oh. A sip of horse. This inner glow doesn't simplify the night. It renders it bearable. That nuance is crucial. Survival hinges on small advantages, not wonders. As time drifts by, you rely on your form to perform its time-honored role when adequately readied. Metabolize energy, emit warmth, resist the cold, and all this, backed by provisions selected far ahead of this evening. You repose with an inner glow that's reliable and subtle, guiding you softly through the deepest part of the night until the surroundings start to transform once more. That internal steadiness endures, bringing along a subtle insight into action. Earlier tonight, motion seemed beneficial, strolling, laboring, fine-tuning. All of it sparked warmth as the freeze first crept in. But now, any stir feels expensive. Every adjustment depletes a resource you'd prefer to conserve. Those who weathered countless winters grasped this rhythm by instinct. Effort suited the twilight fringes, not the heart of the dark. Duties wrapped up before shadows claimed full reign. Implements were inspected, wraps secured, forms heated via exertion, while daylight still lingered to direct it. With those chores complete, immobility turned essential. You perceive how intentional this shift is. It doesn't strike abruptly. It emerges organically. Limbs once engaged now relax. Inhalation deepens. The physique moves from creating heat via exertion to safeguarding it via tranquility. This pivot rivals any gear or haven in significance. Everyday practices subtly reveal that thriving required recognizing the moment to halt. Pushing too hard as evening deepened could breed issues down the line. Perspiration would moisten fabrics. Moist fabrics sapped warmth. Warmth's escape called for extra fuel. The loop might worsen. Sidestepping that loop demanded discipline. You stay put now, mindful that even overextending could upset the equilibrium you've attained. This mindfulness isn't confining, it's safeguarding. You're not rejecting motion, you're delaying it till dawn, when generating heat poses no risk again. A curious practice recorded in various winter narratives entails brief flares of activity right before total repose. Folks would perhaps tread softly, massage extremities, or pace a moment, then cease entirely. This last effort nudged the core temperature up a touch prior to locking into quietude. If it was deliberate or just routine remains uncertain, but it recurs frequently enough to count. You experience that rhythm's impact presently. Your physique bears lingering heat into repose. Not too much, merely sufficient. The wrappings encasing you capture it. The earth beneath bolsters it. The atmosphere stays serene. Outsiders sometimes picture indigenous groups battling frost via non-stop motion. They envision ceaseless effort, as if pausing spelled peril. In truth, perpetual activity was shunned after dark. Vitality was vital. Repose was vital. Stamina arose from timing, not force. Your sinews ease more, easing into a stance that's viable long-term. Not the plushest conceivable, but one maintainable for hours sans stress. Stress breeds tightness. Tightness consumes fuel. Fuel's drain beckons frost. Scholars still dispute how deliberately these habits were passed on. Some posit that seniors guided juniors directly on pacing and moderation. Others contend the knowledge seeped in via watching and guidance. What's evident is that young ones picked it up swiftly. Winter served as a stern yet methodical instructor, one that offered no mercy. You attune yourself to the subtle cadence of your surroundings. Movement has all but ceased among the group. The earlier noises have dissolved into silence. The darkness has settled into its hushed interlude. This collective calm heightens its influence. With all in repose, the surroundings find equilibrium. You reflect on contemporary fitness tips that promote ongoing motion to generate heat. Such guidance presumes ready availability of fresh garments, refuge, and firewood. Out here, the balance shifts entirely. After securing body heat, the focus turns to safeguarding it rather than pursuing additional warmth. Certain local customs highlight a subtle nuance. Individuals would occasionally tuck implements or possessions against their form while sleeping, not merely for security, but to infuse them with gradual warmth. Chilled gear proved cumbersome at first light. Preheating it through the night conserved effort and vigor for the day ahead. This approach also minimized abrupt morning exertions that might jolt the system. You sense your own palms positioned close to your center. This wasn't a deliberate choice. It emerged naturally because it proved effective. Digits retain more heat this way. Blood flow enhances. Each element bolsters the others. Scholars debate the extent to which these behavioral rhythms prevailed across varied environments. In gentler cold seasons, routines might have been more flexible. In severe territories, schedules grew more rigid. Yet the core idea persists in any place where chill meets scarcity. Your mind eases into a gentler pace. The impulse to twitch diminishes. Immobility ceases to seem like mere endurance. It becomes an active engagement. By remaining inert, you contribute meaningfully. The chill beyond probes once more. It probes the setup, yet absent any motion to unsettle it, the balance endures. Warmth dissipates at a measured rate. Inner heat persists in its reliable labor. You come to see that the nocturnal hours aren't simply to be weathered. They invite alliance. Vigor suits daylight. Repose fits the shadows. Blurring those boundaries invites trouble. As time slips onward, you stay composed. Husbanding reserves for future demands. The darkness repays this forbearance with reliability. Within this extended vigil from dusk to daybreak, you grasp a key insight from the season. Thriving demands not endless toil. It hinges on discerning when to cease striving, when heat is bundled securely, anchored to the earth, sustained internally, and shielded by communal quiet. You recline without haste, permitting the gloom to unfold on its terms, assured that dawn stirrings will resume when conditions permit. The evening has evolved into a constant flow now, not brighter, not milder, simply more dependable. This is the moment when provisional cover often materializes. Not through grand effort, but as a seamless outgrowth of prior decisions. No clatter of construction or erection of barriers reaches your ears. Instead, it unfolds with an effortless air, as though the terrain whispered an idea, and it was embraced. You discern outlines taking form, low-slung, unpretentious, easy to overlook if vigilance lapses. A handful of stakes angled strategically, a covering stretched across, foliage propped to deflect the breeze just so. These aren't the dwellings from your schooled visions of homes. They function as brief halts in the expanse, minor barriers against the dark that alter wind patterns and ease bodily repose. Well before fixed abodes proliferated, folks depended on enclosures that could emerge and vanish tracelessly upon the soil. Everyday existence illuminates this truth far better than archived accounts. Such fleeting setups enabled mobility as required and defense as needed, unbound to any fixed spot for sustenance. You experience the shift right away. The gusts mellow, not absent, but channeled aside. The atmosphere within this modest form moves more languidly. Even incomplete enclosure alters the chill's demeanor. The goal isn't total enclosure. It's about curtailing vulnerability sufficiently to count. The components are commonplace: pelts, supports, occasionally plaited fabrics, or fronds collected from the vicinity. No rarities, no squander. These havens assemble swiftly, drawn from ingrained wisdom over invention. Limbs position elements instinctively, sans words. A recurring trait in various areas could catch you off guard. Makeshift covers were frequently left with a slight base opening instead of fully enclosed. This permitted vapor to dissipate rather than gather and solidify within, sealing too firmly captured humidity that would later crystallize. A modest vent addressed that issue subtly. It seems odd at first, until you sense the crispness that lingers inside. You settle in and observe how the haven claims no focus from you, no impression of detachment from the broader realm. The evening remains palpable. Breezes murmur past the barrier, audible yet no longer assailing you. Pioneer settlers from Europe frequently scorned these setups as frail or unfinished. They measured them against sturdy edifices and deemed them deficient. Overlooked was their intent. These dwellings weren't built to endure for years on end. Their goal was to endure just through the night, or even only a portion of it. That shift in aim alters the entire perspective. You reflect on the ease of dismantling the shelter come morning. No cumbersome loads, no lasting fixtures. Mobility stayed straightforward. Adaptability kept choices open, and those choices ensured endurance. Not one theory covers every area perfectly. In certain spots, such setups saw regular use. Elsewhere, they emerged solely in harsh weather or biting freezes. The scenario varies by terrain, time of year, and cultural customs. Yet the constant thread is the aversion to excess construction. Building beyond what's needed bred complications down the line. You sense the way this enclosure complements the garments already on your body. It doesn't supplant them, it enhances them. Your attire manages the heat. The shelter manages the breeze. In tandem, they forge equilibrium. A subtle noise close by hints that someone has tweaked the cover, pulling it taut against a gust's new direction. The action is habitual and swift. The structure reacts at once. The circulation alters. Ease reestablishes itself. Silence prevails. Scholars have debated if these setups prioritized bodily heat or mental solace. Even a loose enclosure soothes the psyche. Counter-arguments stress purely tangible gains. Reality probably blends the two. A settled mind rests more soundly. Sounder rest saves vitality. You observe your musings easing even more with this overhead presence. Not oppressive, merely there. A soft yet tangible limit emerges. This limit contours the darkness. It ceases to stretch infinitely. Boundaries now define it. The aroma within the enclosure feels recognizable. Leather, soil, and a subtle linger of prior fire. Such odors convey security. Known surroundings lessen tension reactions. Lower tension aids in retaining body heat. Long ago, folks intuitively grasped this impact. Biology aside, experts in history debate the uniformity of these shelter forms. Some clues indicate common tenets spanning wide expanses. Others highlight deeply regional variations tailored to local resources and climates. Undeniable, though, is that these weren't hasty fixes. They were honed answers. You recline in this fleeting form, grasping the minimal labor it demanded. No strenuous hauling, no extended chill exposure, just a handful of smartly arranged parts collaborating. The darkness molds itself to them. Beyond, flakes might keep drifting down. Breezes could veer once more. Within, the setup stays controlled. The shelter doesn't battle nature. It bargains with it. You ponder momentarily how today's crisis tents strive for all-purpose fixes, fitting any scenario. These were the reverse, tailored, reactive, crafted for the immediate spot and moment. As moments tick by, the shelter slips from notice. It recedes into the periphery, fulfilling its role precisely. Effective cover doesn't crave focus. It enables repose. The chill lingers but feels remote. The atmosphere holds firm. Your breaths stay measured. Limbs remain loose. No demand pulls for instant reaction. This illustrates how fleeting cover integrates into wintry endurance, absent fixed homes. Not substituting structures, but extending wisdom. A minor tweak that tips the scales sufficiently to count. And, as the darkness flows on in hush, you linger inside this mild limit, guarded yet unbound, covered yet untrapped, dozing within a form intended to persist solely till dawn renders it obsolete once more. The enclosure dissolves from thought, yielding to another awareness. You start sensing how insight travels through the hours unspoken. No assembly calls the collective. No lectures detail steps or reasons. Still, all proceeds fluidly, as if steered by some unseen filament. You observe minor routines recur. A palm secures a crease identically every instance. One individual repositions at a wind's turn, and soon after, another mirrors its site unseen. Wisdom circulates softly here, borne on habit over directives. This has long ranked among the mightiest means for weathering icy evenings, sans enduring abodes. Folks lean not on scripted guides or structured lessons for cold season skills. Crucial was observing, imitating, and sensing the outcome. Success etched itself into muscle memory. Shortcomings left keen reminders. Such absorption doesn't proclaim itself. It embeds. You sense it embedding in you presently. Before, you shifted intentionally. Now it happens unbidden. Flesh acts prior to thought articulating cause. Thus, comprehension turns innate. Ages before records attempted capture, communities relied on this method for its reliability. A fact that startles contemporary audiences surfaces in initial chronicles of native cold season existence. Elders seldom pointed out errors outright, except in cases of urgent risk. Rather, they let unease serve as the teacher. The chill acted as an unmistakable guide, requiring no words. Kids picked up fast on spots where heat escaped and ways to guard against it, just by going through it while kept in sight. You observe that nobody cheers on proper actions either. Rewards aren't part of the equation. Making it through alive is reward in itself. Surviving the darkness without mishap provides all the proof needed. This method of passing down wisdom keeps winter routines steady from one generation to the next. Skills aren't stored as tales or regulations. They exist in gestures, rhythm, and stance. Those digging into ancient sites have seen uniform designs on implements and bedding over centuries, hinting at routines carried out with minimal tweaks. Scholars aren't fully agreed on the room for personal trial and error in this framework. Certain finds indicate rigid customs with scant changes. Other hints imply subtle tweaks tried on the edges. What's certain is that effective shifts caught on organically. Folks adopted what succeeded. You grasp how this approach eases the mind's burden. No need to dissect each choice. The body remembers the motions from past times. This leaves room for focusing elsewhere, attuning to the elements, scanning for threats, conserving strength. A minor, almost light-hearted custom shows up in some cold-season tales. Fresh arrivals to the band would falter initially, botching basics in positioning or rapping. Rather than scold, companions would shift their own setups close by. Gradually, the novice would echo those motions. Absorption occurred without shame or clash. You grow more at ease, realizing constant alertness isn't required. The framework sustains on its own. Everyone adds by following what intuitively fits, which aligns with proven paths. This understated handover of insight also clarifies why initial visitors misread the scenes before them. Absent narration, the habits seemed offhand or haphazard. Viewers confused smoothness with inexperience. They missed that it stemmed from ingrained mastery. You regulate your breath once more, drawing it in longer and fuller. This wasn't a conscious pick. It aligned with the pulse nearby. Common surroundings aligned folks in understated manners. Such alignment preserves body heat and effort. Experts in history debate if this education approach hindered swift evolution or shielded from hazardous novelties. Some claim it delayed shifts. Others say it weeded out perils before they took hold. Regardless, it yielded enduring ways. You recline amid tiny recurring actions that seem trivial, yet build into endurance. Nobody stakes claim to the wisdom. It resides with the evening, the terrain, and those dwelling in harmony with them. That's why fixed dwellings weren't always essential. When expertise flows freely among the collective, protection adapts easily. The key frameworks lie within. Ingrained patterns, keen senses, recollections held in sinew and pace. As darkness lingers, you blend more into the flow. Less a bystander and more engaged. Doubts about the next step fade. You react naturally to any alteration. The frost stays constant. The haven endures. The circle keeps still. Wisdom circulates steadily, unseen yet vital. In this serene rhythm of observing and acting, you settle into a structure that operates without needing words, bearing you softly across the extended vigil until the surroundings subtly begin to transform once more. You spot the young ones now, not from greater motion, but from its distinct style. Their forms appear freer, less measured. They twist and relax without that precise thrift. Still, they don't shiver as one might predict. The darkness instructs them young, but kindly, via practice over caution. Here, the little ones aren't wholly insulated from the season's bite early on. They're eased into it through bite-sized encounters, incremental acclimation. By adulthood, the chill feels routine, not daunting. This ease influences their repose, respiration, and reactions to sudden freezes. You witness the youth echoing the grown-ups near them. They imitate bearing before grasping why. They master tucking limbs, tilting torsos, halting activity. No talks of thermal escape or gusts. The insight sinks in through sensation, unspoken. A subtle note in cold tales reveals that the young often got leeway for minor slips while monitored. A misplaced rap, a digit bared moments too long. The unease corrected swiftly, harmlessly. Guidance emerged from trial, not talk. This fostered both skill and assurance. You observe that kids are seldom positioned on the periphery of the sleeping setup. Instead, they're tucked into spots where the air stays stillest and the heat holds most even. No one declares it outright. It's just the way things are arranged. Safeguarding in this context is woven right into the layout, not imposed via endless vigilance. Scholars debate the degree of deliberation in this initial exposure. Certain ones view it as a purposeful way to ready the young. Others posit it arose organically from routine existence, without any forethought. Regardless, the outcome held steady. Youngsters matured, viewing the chill as an element to manage, rather than dread. Through their company, the evening's harshness softens for you. Their subtle shifts bring a gentle quality to the shadows. Their breaths come lighter and swifter. It underscores that enduring isn't invariably grave. It can blend seamlessly into everyday rhythms. Certain spoken histories allude to a peculiar custom where children would frolic for short bursts in the frigid air prior to bundling up snugly. That sharp juxtaposition amplified the sense of coziness afterward. If this served as targeted conditioning or mere amusement is debatable, yet it honed sensitivity to fluctuations in the weather. You see how the young ones drift off more swiftly than grown-ups. Their forms embrace the darkness without resistance. Such straightforwardness stems from habituation. Repose arrives once the physique relies on its surroundings. Grown-ups stay more alert, attuned to faint alterations. This disparity isn't a shortcoming, it's a duty. The little ones recharge because the elders maintain the lookout. Such a split enables the group to operate effectively. You reflect on contemporary methods that aim to shield children from all unease. In this place, ease coexists with education. The aim isn't to harden, but to equip. Being equipped diminishes apprehension in time. Experts differ on the precise impact of these formative encounters on grown-up fortitude. A few contend they cultivated bodily endurance. Others maintain the influence was chiefly mental. Probably the two intertwined. Self-assurance curbs alarm. Less alarm conserves vitality. You sense the evening progressing at its unhurried pace. The chill holds constant. The children fidget now and then before quieting once more. No grand events unfold. That's precisely the essence. As time advances, it dawns on you that weathering winter isn't an ability acquired solely in maturity. It's a progression that starts young and develops incrementally. When the intense frosts of Cirrus set in, the form is already versed in responses. This foundational acquaintance also accounts for why native grown-ups seemed unfazed by circumstances that daunted newcomers. The freeze wasn't unfamiliar, it was ingrained. You settle into rest, carrying that insight. Thriving in this realm demands no epic stoicism, it's extended readiness. It's wisdom accumulated softly over years. The kids nearby slumber, the elders stay composed, the darkness endures, and in your reclined state, you perceive how the season no longer descends abruptly. It has approached steadily, instructing subtly, molding forms and patterns well prior to this evening's onset. The darkness has deepened into a profound hush now. Beyond mere diminished noise, it's a waning of urges. Even your musings slow, their outlines blurring gently. You recognize the efficiency at play, how scant resources are squandered, respiration shifts utterances. All excess has been pared back, leaving only purposeful elements. You perceive how the hush itself carries a kind of insulation. Not in a physical sense, naturally, but in practice. Voicing words chills the oral cavity and chest. It stirs currents. It prompts activity. Stillness lets the frame remain sealed, composed, safeguarding its gathered reserves. That's why dialogue ebbs so instinctively in the chill and gloom. It's not dictated, it's instinctive, echoed in numerous native winter customs. Evenings lacked idle talk. Tales fit the prior times amid flames and secure motion. Subsequently, tranquility prevailed. This was merely the natural order of nights. When preservation was key, some from afar mistook this reticence for dourness or severity. From within, it registered as soothing. You grasp the deliberate handling of noise at present. Any motion is measured and purposeful. Cloth glides instead of crackling. A hack is subdued within wrappings. Exhales are tempered. These minor decisions limit drafts close to the skin and avert abrupt warmth escape. They spare others from needless awakening too. A quiet rapport links stillness to collective vigilance. In the absence of clamor, minor variances stand out. A breeze's turn, a thermal dip, flakes landing variably. Hush owns focus effortlessly. Such readiness supplants perpetual surveillance or defense. You sense your respiration adjusting accordingly. Inhaled nasally, expelled leisurely. Heated air dwells within enclosures prior to release. Dampness is regulated. The exterior freeze finds slimmer chances to encroach. A minor practice emerges that's easy to overlook. Individuals typically kept their mouths covered during sleep whenever they could, even if parts of their faces stayed somewhat exposed. The material close to the mouth heated the air coming in and tempered the breath going out. This minimized irritation and supported more even respiration. It's the kind of tweak that proves essential only after prolonged exposure to the chill. Scholars debate to some degree whether these habits were deliberately passed down or simply arose from trial, error, and adaptation amid hardship. Yet, as you lie there, it's clear how swiftly the body picks up on effective methods. Once it does, that knowledge sticks. Quietness holds deeper social weight, too. It conveys confidence in one another. Nobody's putting on a show or seeking attention. All are simply recharging in unison. This collective hush builds a feeling of security. Such security enables profound relaxation. Profound relaxation safeguards vitality. You sense the darkness seeming less intimidating than before, despite the dropping temperatures. What was once watchful tension has given way to routine. The freeze is familiar now, handled with care, under control. Apprehension diminishes once patterns become foreseeable. In contemporary settings, quiet is frequently drowned out by sounds, even in the dark hours. Out here, though, quiet serves as a vital asset. It bolsters endurance just like garments or enclosures do. It demands no price. Its rewards are immense. Your body eases into total immobility. Even minor twitches have ceased. The posture you've adopted seems viable. Not ideal perhaps, but equilibrium suffices. This poise is mirrored in the circle surrounding you. No abrupt motions from anyone. No disruptions to the hush. The evening progresses uninterrupted. Certain experts propose that this fostered tranquility left a mark on communal behaviors extending past the cold season, molding attitudes toward attentiveness and moderation. Counterviews claim the link is exaggerated. Regardless, the tie between quiet and perseverance stands out unmistakably. Experiencing its benefits firsthand, you edge nearer to slumber, not dragged by weariness but guided by serenity. The evening no longer demands your vigilance. It permits repose. Beyond, the expanse stays frigid and immense. Within your modest haven of calm, heat endures. Quiet envelops all, not as a void, but as purposeful presence. And as time slips by in unobtrusive peace, free of words or directives, you stay put, inhaling gently, husbanding warmth and vigor through the night's harshest stretch, sustained by the understated might of communal silence. The immobility persists, yet underneath it lingers a subtle preparedness, not haste, merely attentiveness. The darkness has deepened, and it's in these depths that choices forged well before this evening subtly unfold. Deciding to linger or depart wasn't a whim. It drew from seasonal shifts, atmospheric cues, and recalled experiences. You perceive the stability of this spot. The atmosphere stays even. The earth retains its consistent chill. No tension in the air. That's often the cue to hold position. Over years, folks attuned to this sensation. When elements held steady instead of deteriorating, remaining in place, saved reserves. Unneeded travel courted danger. In various territories, winter journeys aligned with natural cycles over fixed timetables. Encampments relocated only when provisions dictated or climate altered markedly, not merely at sunset. Thus, countless frigid evenings unfolded just like this one, recuperating amid favorable surroundings rather than pressing ahead. You picture rising at this moment, gathering gear, trudging forth, bearing flesh to the stirring breeze. Merely considering it seems draining. That instinctive recoil conveys valuable insight. The form alerts you when motion would outweigh its benefits. Heeding that alert formed a key survival element. Certain cold weather customs highlight this intuition in a subtle ritual. Prior to bedding down at twilight, groups would halt briefly, standing in stillness to gauge the breeze and attune their ears. If the bite intensified or gusts picked up, the trek resumed. If the harshness eased, they settled. This interlude called for forbearance, yet it averted regrettable choices down the line. You're relieved that interlude occurred earlier. All signs point to remaining. The evening has molded into a reliable form. Reliable surroundings outmatch the uncertain. Academics discuss the typical daily distances winter bands covered and the adaptability of their itineraries. Some findings indicate rigid paths linked to supply points. Alternative indicators imply frequent adjustments to climatic shifts. What unites the accounts is adaptability. Itineraries flexed without shattering. You observe how this pliancy eases pressure. No haste in the air, no impression of lagging. Here, duration tracks environmental states, not timepieces. This lets the physique function smoothly rather than fretfully. Close by, a person adjusts position modestly and composes themselves anew, then quiets once more. The action unfolds leisurely. It doesn't hint at leaving. It affirms ease. The collective stays dedicated to this site for the present. You reflect on how current journeys compel progress, heedless of the elements. Schedules push aside the body's cues and the surroundings' warnings. Out here, though, it's the landscape that dictates the rhythm. You sense the vitality saved by holding steady through the dark hours. Your center stays toasty. Your arms and legs feel cradled. Your gut works on without fanfare. Slumber draws nearer. Scholars debate the ways these choices about staying or going were shared. A few propose open talks. Others favor an intuitive bond needing few words. Stretched out like this, you reckon it was probably a look, a hesitation, a mutual read of the atmosphere. Darkness thickens. Yet another stride forward in time. The stars inch across the sky. All else holds steady. That steadiness itself conveys a message. Constancy signals security. You ease deeper into your spot, sure that lingering was wise. The next day's trek can wait for dawn's light and a safer chance to build fire. Right now, repose is the task. Repose safeguards vigor. Vigor promises endurance past this darkness. Thus you stay put, not from inability to go, but from no real need. The terrain has provided sufficiently. The evening has eased into tolerability. You welcome that boon in silence, allowing the moments to unfold unopposed, assured that this quiet isn't procrastination, but ancient insight. As hours elongate, your focus wanders to the modest things lying close by. Before, they hardly caught your eye. In this profound hush, however, they hold a significance beyond their modest form. These aren't implements for doing, they're for enduring pauses. One brushes your flank, bearing a faint warmth from nearness. Perhaps a satchel, a creased skin, a twist of cords. Simple stuff, no frills or show. Still, its mere presence performs vital service. It traps heated air nearby. It nudges chill farther off. Folks figured out ages back that things could be positioned to handle warmth like flesh and bone. Not all had to be strapped on. Certain pieces served best when set to plug voids, stem breezes, or shield tender areas. Such tweaks weren't boasted about. They endured because they proved effective. You see your palms positioned beside one of these. The heat you lend it isn't squandered now. It retains a portion and returns it gradually. This back and forth seems almost mutual. The thing doesn't generate heat for you. It stabilizes the zone encircling you. In various cold weather customs, basic packs were tucked by the toes or flanks of those bedding down. At times with extra garb, at times with parched plants, at times merely balled up fabric. Storage wasn't the aim. It was about warding off chill. Occupying voids stopped icy drafts from settling in the worst spots. A minor habit noted in far north accounts entailed situating belongings to guide currents of air. A sack angled right might veer a gust. A coiled pad might seal a sneaky wind path. These shifts were so understated that strangers overlooked them, yet their benefits built up through the watches. You grasp how this contrasts with today's notions of equipment. Out here, items lack specialization or tags. Any could prove handy based on how it's set. Expertise resides in positioning, not possession. Your form stays motionless as these observations sink in. Stirring serves no purpose anymore. All has aligned properly. Even your mind eases into languid loops, meandering softly instead of flitting. Experts differ on the deliberateness of these setups. Some claim deliberate tactics passed down generations. Others see organic developments from spotting chill spots and using what's handy. Either view holds water. Insight doesn't demand forethought. You experience the outcome regardless. Your toes stay less chilled than before. Your flanks feel shielded. The area encircling you seems molded, not exposed. Close at hand, a person adjusts an object a touch, then halts. The action is minor, yet deliberate. The atmosphere adjusts. The shift registers at once, then fades as ease resumes. These items bear the scent of habit, of touch, of familiar grounds trod before. That known quality soothes the psyche. Soothed nerves cut idle strain. Less strain saves warmth. The loop persists. You ponder how excavators unearth these relics, yet puzzle over their function. A cord cluster appears mundane in the soil. A creased pelt vanishes with scant evidence. Their value dims once the evening that defined them slips away. Your breaths stay even and measured. Inner heat endures. Outer frost seems held at bay. No fresh urge calls for alertness. Certain chroniclers posit that depending on such versatile basics mirrors a wider ethos of treading softly upon the earth. Some scholars warn against overinterpreting practical decisions as deep philosophy. Yet, as you lie there, you sense how these straightforward selections build endurance without unnecessary extras. The evening unfolds at its own leisurely pace. You stay upheld by a network of terrain, bodies, and items, all collaborating seamlessly without any directives. This explains why shelters weren't always essential. When even the tiniest elements are positioned thoughtfully, the environment turns controllable on its own. As time creeps onward, these items recede into the periphery of your consciousness, right where they ought to be. They perform their roles silently and reliably, without fanfare, and you repose sustained not through barriers or fixtures, but via a deliberate assembly of basic elements aligned precisely, transforming the darkness into something bearable until dawn arrives. The evening alters when you grasp that you're confronting it with company, not merely through adjacent forms or communal areas, but because the peril itself appears dispersed. Chill encroaches from every direction. Still, no individual shoulders its entire burden. It gets portioned out subtly, distributed without ritual. You perceive this in how folks stay attuned to each other even during repose, not monitoring or protecting, but detecting an alteration in respiration, a minor motion. These signals hit home without triggering panic. They enable action prior to unease escalating into threat. Such mutual attentiveness eases the demand for nonstop watchfulness from any single soul. Enduring the season in this spot isn't a solo competition. It's a group reality. If one individual rouses, the rest adapt. If someone obstructs a breeze, another gains from it. If heat steadies in one spot, it eases a bit toward the adjacent. This linkage evens out the harshest parts. You observe the shift it brings to your own condition. Your shoulders carry less strain. Your eyes less frantically probe the shadows. Realizing companions are nearby, even dozing, lets your frame lower its defenses. That easing saves fuel. Fuel saved means heat preserved. A frequently ignored element of this communal endurance is the way obligations flow effortlessly. Nobody gets tasked with overnight surveillance. Rather, attentiveness cycles organically. One person stirs halfway, tunes in, then slips away again. Someone else follows suit afterward. The darkness gets spanned not by obligation, but through interlocking vigilance. You sense the reassurance in this. Free of any interruption, there's no burdensome reliance. All partake merely by existing there. Existence turns into an asset. In certain seasonal narratives, individuals recount rousing momentarily to tweak a layer for another, then resuming slumber wordlessly. These instances seldom show up in official accounts. They're too minor, too routine, but they hold profound importance. You picture tackling this evening in isolation. Each noise would require scrutiny. Each fluctuation in chill would hit as critical. Solitary, the frost would bite harder. United, it's handleable. This joint method also disseminates expertise. When a person reacts aptly to a shift, the rest take in the rhythm. Come the following instance, more folks act instinctively. Proficiency spreads across the collective song guidance. You detect the faith that anchors it all, faith that peers will detect, faith that aid will arrive unobtrusively if required. Faith that the arrangement endures. This faith eases tension, and lessened tension safeguards heat. The frost beyond stays the same. What's altered is its distribution. Nobody takes it all take a share. You inhale measuredly, sensing the reliability of the circle encircling you. The evening appears less immense when divided. Its boundaries blur, its pressures diminish. This represents a subtle power that lets folks persist sans structures. Barriers divide, collectives bind. Binding forges toughness. With time advancing, you sink further into slumber, assured that even unconscious, you're woven into a vigilant and adaptive whole. The evening progresses chilly, yet bounded, maintained in equilibrium by countless minor gestures of mutual tending, until the obscurity starts to ease its hold, almost too subtly to notice. The evening doesn't proclaim its shift in mood. It just happens. You feel it prior to comprehending. A subtle atmospheric change, a soft rise in noise. The atmosphere grows a touch denser, like it's chosen to stir once more. The elements act independently, and seasonal evenings excel at underscoring that truth. You stay composed, so does everyone. Abrupt alterations are anticipated, not dreaded. Blizzards, winds, drifting flakes, snowfall. These function less as shocks and more as twists on a known motif. Folks master spotting the initial indicators and reacting prior to full escalation. You experience the reaction unfold near instinctively. One person secures a flap. Another nudges a shelter from gusts by mere inches. Forms tilt faintly from the incoming flow. These actions stay subdued and effective. Nobody lingers to gauge the severity. Prompt minor tweaks avert major issues down the line. This preparedness stems not from perpetual worry. This wisdom arose from habit. Evenings such as these occurred frequently, making the warning signals second nature. The frame of mind grew attuned to what truly counted and what could be overlooked. Shifts in noise often signaled more than fluctuations in the chill. The way flakes drifted over the earth revealed secrets the heavens never shared. You observe the minimal energy required for these tweaks. Nobody rises to full height. Nobody bears flesh without reason. All actions happen from crouched stances, hugging heat near. Such sparing motions reflect the harmony already in place. A common technique emerges in icy territories. When gales struck without warning, folks curbed the impulse to overhaul their cover radically. Piling on material hastily led to weak spots and strains. Rather, they bolstered the setup that functioned. A touch more pressure in one spot, a sharper tilt in another. Gradual fixes outlasted bold overhauls. You sense the enclosure nearby yielding to these modifications. It bends with the flow instead of standing firm. Gusts glide by without forcing entry. Flurries accumulate in spots that aid rather than hinder. The setup evolves without crumbling. Your inhales remain measured. That's key. Rapid gasps parch the passages and sap inner heat. Measured breaths trap coziness longer. Though the darkness evolves, you hold steady. You reflect on how today's crisis handling tends toward intensification. Extra coverings, sturdier builds, greater exertion. In contrast, this approach sharpens focus, optimizes positioning, times actions precisely, and cuts excess. The folks nearby stay composed. No shouts echo. No orders are barked. Individuals act on instinct alone. then ease back. Collective vigilance snaps back fast, stopping the alteration from spreading chaos. Records vary on the intensity of blizzards across eras and places. Weather cycles evolved gradually. What endures is flexibility. Thriving hinged less on flawless forecasts and more on solid reactions once tempest hit. You perceive the frost challenging the setup once more. A short gust, a testing breeze. It discovers no breach. The coverings, items, forms, and terrain soak up the shift. The whole holds firm. The flakes rustle alters now. They drift gentler, yet more persistently. Yet they also lend mass where it's beneficial. They nudge the barriers lower softly, closing seams. What seemed vulnerable earlier now fortifies. You unwind once more, relying on the fixes in place. The gale seeks no extra countermeasures. It eases into a fresh cadence, and you match it. This explains why permanent dwellings weren't always essential. Rigid builds defy shifts. Pliable setups embrace them. Pliancy minimizes breakdowns. As time stretches on, the elements carry on their subtle dialogue with the terrain. You stay woven into that exchange, not apart but engaged via quiet poise and minor decisions. The evening pulses with life now, yet without threat. It flows, it probes, it adjusts. And since you've mirrored that, you rest assured amid the flux, certain that any further elemental twists find you prepared, without stirring, scrambling, or battling. With the climate steadying anew, your focus turns inward to the tales that dwell in shadow. This is prime time for thoughts to roam freely, when the form lies motionless and the gloom extends far enough to merge recollection with fancy. Chilly evenings like these have long molded how folks share narratives, not with clamor, but with patience. You grasp that accounts in these parts aren't spectacles. They serve as allies. Back when dusk fell, exchanges might have flowed amid flames fueled by glow and stir. Those threads now play out wordlessly within the head. They lend form to the void without rousing it. In numerous native traditions, the cold months stood as the prime season for lore, not from chattier nights, but from deeper listening. Absent interruptions, recollections could root deeply. Insights on climate, creatures, and conduct wove into tales simple to recall in tough spots. You ponder how countless such yarns embedded useful advice subtly. A fable of a beast seeking haven suggested ways to interpret the soil, an account of one who disregarded cues and endured in silence stressed vigilance. The narrative amused, yet it also readied. Knowledge journeyed cloaked in purpose. Not directives. A gentle quality envelops these yarns as you recline here. They seek no faith. They claim no precision. They provide direction. Amid obscurity, grasping thought patterns counts as much as action steps. You see, dread has scant space to take hold. When consciousness clings to the known, tales steady the mind. They halt wild turns. Poised reflection maintains even breaths. Even breaths preserve inner fire. Fancy itself aids endurance. Certain winter customs featured tales reserved exclusively for the chilly season, ones never shared during warmer times. These narratives suited the extended darkness when their teachings held true relevance. It's hard to separate whether this seasonal choice stemmed from symbolism or necessity, yet it deepened the sense of cycles and environmental cues. You sense the darkness around you attending closely. The snow muffles noises. A soft breeze stirs once more. The surroundings come across as welcoming instead of hostile. This shift allows your thoughts to ease without veering into anxiety. In various spoken legacies, a subtle pattern emerges. Many accounts wrap up without tidy wrap-ups. The audience lingers with the unresolved close, pondering in silence. This echoes the essence of the evening. The season demands no hurried fixes. It calls for endurance. You remain motionless, permitting bits of lore to wander through your mind. They're gentle, not piercing. They fail to jolt you alert. Instead, they descend softly, like falling flakes that smooth out sharp contours. Your physique mirrors this inner peace. Tension eases from the limbs. The face softens. Fingers unclasp. The chill lingers, yet it seems distant, not so intrusive. It doesn't matter if elements of these accounts were factual or molded by generations. The key lies in their purpose. They directed focus. They tempered dread. They recalled that predecessors had weathered similar vigils. You reflect on how today's evenings bristle with distractions to dodge quietude. In this spot, however, narratives occupy the hush in a unique manner. They don't supplant it. They hover amid it. With time ticking by, the boundary between tale and slumber fades. Visions meander leisurely. The psyche rehearses release. This represents yet another facet of enduring sans structures. Protection extended beyond the tangible. It encompassed the spirit. A composed psyche retains heat as effectively as strategic insulation. The darkness persists, profound and hushed. The terrain slumbers. The community slumbers. The lore slumbers within you, performing its subtle task. And as slumber nears, you perceive these passed-down ideas, forged across endless frosts, encircling the inner fire like an unseen shroud, providing solace song clamor, steering you softly through the final shadowy stretch until dawn hints at awakening. The terrain seems altered now despite your stillness. The shift is faint, more felt than seen. An element in the atmosphere hints at vastness, as though the enveloping gloom ties into a broader design beyond this locale. You start to grasp how techniques effective here might falter elsewhere, and how folks attune themselves to their surroundings, not merely the era. Frost acts variably based on the terrain it inhabits. Vast fields permit gusts to sweep unchecked. Woods temper their advance. Peaks leach heat quicker than lowlands. Ages before classifications of weather zones, individuals adapted to these variances on instinct. Endurance wasn't uniform. It evolved with the earth underfoot. You envision this evening in varied locales. Amid thick trees, limbs would curb the breeze but hoard flakes. By waterways, the chill would weigh more, moist, unrelenting. In parched zones, drops would plunge post-dusk before leveling. Every setting required tailored approaches. The strategies you're employing suit this exact spot. You notice how the soil retains heat better than rocky outcrops, how gusts come in pulses, not unrelenting blasts. Such traits influence all aspects. They dictate attire, resting spots, group formations. No custom is adopted without consideration. Habits align with the environment or fade away. Echoes of this sensitivity show in resource selections. Bark prevailed in certain areas. Elsewhere, fibers or pelts. Even shelter angles and vents varied by topography. What suits arid frost flops in humid chill? What shields gusts in one spot retains dampness in another. Folks discern these nuances via trial, not abstraction. One notable trait in certain areas. Leaders altered routines wordlessly upon breaching unseen divides. A restful posture from one dusk would tweak by the next. Though the Mercury read alike, the variance hid in the Earth's ways, not the thermometer. You develop a silent admiration for such flexibility. It demands vigilance without excess analysis. One observes shifts without overdoing response. Excess reaction drains vitality. Insufficient reply breeds unease. Equilibrium resides in the middle. The surrounding gloom holds firm, yet your perception broadens. You see now why any account of cold weather endurance feels partial. The view alters with vantage. Seemingly alike tactics conceal underlying tweaks. You repose with this insight, foregoing the urge to sort it. The psyche needn't inventory each nuance. It just stays open. As time advances, the terrain cradles you in its distinct fashion. The frost here bites keenly, but stays arid. The breeze sweeps in and then retreats. The earth returns a portion of its earlier hold. This spot carries its unique cadence, and you've fallen into step with it. Through that alignment, you grasp how folks persisted, not by conquering winter in the abstract, but by gradually absorbing each site's lessons, allowing the terrain to guide them on, enduring the darkness and departing without hesitation. Sometime during the darkness, sans any obvious cue, you detect an additional awareness. It's not tangible or close at hand, merely a sense of observation, a kind of scrutiny that's strange rather than hostile. Right then, you start to see the origins of those misinterpretations. Well before structures, barriers, or charts altered this terrain, individuals slumbered in this manner as a matter of course. To them, it carried no sense of shortfall. Yet for newcomers from distant places, burdened with their own notions of protection and refuge, the sight must have seemed disquieting. No barriers, no secured entrances, no elevated sleeping spots, just forms reclining exposed, relying on the invisible. You picture those initial arrivals encountering such an evening. They'd perceive risk where equilibrium existed. They'd view fragility where assurance prevailed. Their reflexes would hunt for threats and encounter mere stillness. That stillness would seem off-kilter. Here, the seeds of misconception sprouted. Folks evaluate endurance through the lens of their own baggage. Rock barriers signaled safety. Flames offered heat. Hush implied peril. Absent those cues, presumptions flooded the void. From within, you sense the injustice of such critique. All elements here function seamlessly. The darkness lacks ease, yet it's managed. No voids exist, no disorder reigns. Still, the unfamiliarity of missing conventional forms would register as deficiency. Initial accounts frequently emphasized absences to depict the scene. No dwellings, no fixed sleeping areas, no confined spaces. Overlooked were the mechanisms that stood in their stead. Insight, rhythm, positioning, vigilance. To eyes schooled in viewing refugee as built forms, these don't register as protection. You remain there, attuned to the profound integration of these mechanisms. They don't proclaim their presence. They avoid showiness. They operate subtly, rendering them simple to dismiss. Certain initial onlookers even presumed immense hardship in these winter eves, merely because they themselves would endure it. Such presumptions reveal more about the viewer than the viewed. Devoid of the routines, resources, and comprehension you now sense collaborating, the darkness would truly pose peril. You reflect on how chronicles tend to capture the conspicuous, not the seamless. Striking collapses earn documentation. Routine triumphs slip by unseen. That's why such eves often vanish from tales. They yielded no drama. They yielded endurance. You sense a faint divide now between how things appear and their true nature, between surface and substance. That divide fueled ages of misconception. The darkness persists around you, untouched by these reflections. Breezes shift, flakes settle, forms inhale. No defense or justification is required. It merely persists effectively. As you settle in that spot, you see that enduring sans dwellings wasn't a concession. It formed a full framework, deemed partial solely by those unversed in discerning it. And, as time glides onward in hush, you permit that insight to take hold, acknowledging how readily sagacity gets confused with void, and how vast swaths of history were misconstrued because they operated so subtly as to evade notice. The chill now seems routine, not welcoming, not soft, but recognized. You know its heft, its pace, how it bears down before relenting. At first, it seemed an intruder from beyond. Now, it's more like a state you're immersed in, something that no longer seeks reaction. This change holds weight. Familiarity blunts the chill's keenest bite. The form ceases to respond as if error has occurred. Rather, it regards the chill as data. Limbs remain relaxed. Respiration stays measured. Vitality remains allocated properly. Those who navigated such winters didn't regard chill as a foe to vanquish. They saw it as an element to integrate. You sense that distinction. Battling chill breeds strain. Strain depletes warmth. Embracing it preserves it. You observe the minimal exertion now. No repeated fiddling with layers. No constant wind checks. The framework sustains, and all rely on it. That reliance enables profound repose. There's an instant when you notice you're no longer pondering the chill's intensity. The notion ceases to emerge. This stems not from any shift in the air. It arises from your evolving bond with it. Such ease probably built across countless eves, countless seasons. Each encounter layered comprehension. Chill cease to startle. Startles provoke response. Predictable situations enable foresight. You reflect on how the chill feels overwhelming to those who face it infrequently. The physique reacts with alarm. Thoughts whirl chaotically. Yet here, neither occurs. Serenity has become second nature through repeated practice. You sense the evening easing into a kind of quiet alliance. It's present, acknowledged, yet it doesn't disrupt anymore. This even keel lets slumber grow more profound. Later, others might label this condition as grit or stamina, but that overlooks the essence. What envelops you presently isn't rigidity. It's evolution. The form has figured out anticipation and limits. You repose more completely, confident that no abrupt shift will require response. The frost has revealed its limits. It's exerted its influence for the moment. As time advances, this ease endures. The darkness no longer seems like an ordeal to endure. It comes across as a process already in motion, progressing steadily. Enveloped in that awareness, you ease into repose. Recognizing that chill, once familiar, sheds most of its ability to disturb, turning into just one element of the evening that guides you toward morning. Comfort has evolved into a new concept by this point. It's less about plushness or simplicity. It's centered on consistency, the sort that stays reliable without wild swings or empty assurances. You perceive this dependability and the subtle consistency across the recent hours. No major enhancements have occurred, nor has anything deteriorated. That equilibrium is key. You grasp how prior decisions prioritize trustworthiness over extravagance. Bulky coverings that might cause overheating while traveling were sidestepped. Flames requiring constant tending and resources were restrained. Even protection remained basic. Everything aligns with a subtle tenet. Thriving in such conditions rewards constancy, not fleeting spectacle. You notice the lack of extravagance at present, and it doesn't register as lack. It registers as sharpness. Overabundance breeds issues amid the freeze. Excessive warmth prompts perspiration. Elaborate setups introduce vulnerabilities. Unnecessary activity depletes stores essential for what lies ahead. What sustained folks through evenings like these wasn't ease as contemporary standards portray it, but trustworthiness. Supplies act consistently each time. Routines yield expected outcomes. Such foreseeability permitted true rest. You observe your physique's reaction to this uniformity. No more fidgeting for an ideal spot. No impulse to mend what's fine. Your sinews stay loose, schooled that no jolt is imminent. Earlier in the darkness, you might have craved extra cushioning, heat, or cover. Those yearnings have now dissolved. The arrangement functions effectively as is. Extra elements would merely tangle it. You ponder how current tales of outlasting the elements emphasize intensity. Savage freezes, frantic makeshifts in despair. Such portrayals ignore the bulk of reality. Most evenings persist not via bold feats, but via frameworks that steadfastly hold up. You sense this method reaching past the tangible. On a cognitive level, there's no attachment to luxury or irritation at its shortfall. Resignation has supplanted longing. That psychological adjustment conserves vigor, much like bodily moderation. A subtle swell of satisfaction emerges from this insight, mild rather than boastful. You're not battling some epic trial. You're engaging in a practice honed over ages. You remark once more on the minimal noise. No fidgeting, no soft grumbles. The collective has embraced this insight too. Steadiness has been secured. That's sufficient. Even the chill honors this poise. It bears down steadily without intensification. It probes now and then, but uncovers no flaws to target. The evening progresses sans theatrics. You recline there, valuing how perseverance doesn't proclaim itself. It just persists, minute by minute, evening by evening. Through that persistence, you comprehend why those accustomed to this existence didn't call their nights severe. They required effort, certainly, but they offered firmness too. That firmness rendered them bearable. As the shadows begin to lift in the final stretch, you stay put, sustained not by conventional coziness, but by a subtler, firmer foundation, a framework offering not convenience, merely persistence. And that assurance, delivered without fanfare, eases you serenely into daybreak. Deep within your frame, winter is recalled prior to any mental label, a subtle clench that avoids alarm, a stance that aligns unprompted, a hesitation prior to action that seems inherent, not wary. These instincts emerge softly, as though latent, awaiting the proper triggers. You see that this evening isn't steered solely by deliberate choices. Much unfolds on autopilot. Tendons shift ahead of any unease. Respiration eases without trying. Even the positioning of your jaw has shifted, loosened just right to trap heat inside with each breath out. This sort of knowledge doesn't reside in tales or descriptions. It embeds itself through practice. Evenings such as this etch marks that sink far beneath words. Gradually, the body grasps winter's demands and delivers the right reactions ahead of any mental meddling. You sense that adaptation in your palms. Before, they chased heat relentlessly, fidgeting, curling, probing. These days they lie still, blood flowing evenly without fuss. You're no longer fixating on them. That lack of focus signals achievement. Folks raised amid such harsh seasons bore these instincts onward unnamed. The chill never struck as fresh annually. It came as something routine, almost anticipated. Such recognition curbed anxiety, and curbing anxiety saved vitality. The frame didn't squander energy on shocks. Records from distant eras recount how those seasoned by countless colds could nod off swiftly amid setups that daunted newcomers. This wasn't grit or grit alone. It was intuition. The physique anticipated the night's progression. You experience that intuition presently. The frost has revealed its full spectrum. It has pushed, probed, then eased. Your form has realigned in kind. No further tweaks needed. This recollection stretches past mere chill. It encompasses rhythm, moments to halt motion, to fuel up, to sip, to remain motionless. Every step bolsters the following one. In unison, they weave a template the body retains even as consciousness wanders. You observe how slumber edges in so smoothly. Moments ago, you lingered on the brink of repose, vigilant and attuned. Now, your vigilance fades. Ideas trickle in at a languid pace. Visions soften along the borders. The physique relies on the surroundings sufficiently to release control. That reliance accumulates gradually. It accrues via uneventful evenings, via reliable mechanisms. Once the form grasps no jolts await, it permits profound relaxation. You reflect on how this ingrained wisdom transmitted sans speech. Young ones observed elders easing in. They sensed when activity ceased. They absorbed when silence fell. Across seasons, their frames took on identical cadences. Recollection stacked across lineages. Debate lingers on the awareness of such transmission. Did they deliberately impart these reflexes or just embody them? The divide pales against the result. The result was endurance needing no rationale. You embody that endurance now, not as might, but as fluidity. Fluidity forged in routine. Fluidity that lets the frame hoard heat instead of expending it. The darkness persists, yet it no longer looms as a foe to conquer. It unfolds as a recognized sequence. Your physique identifies its current phase and acts in sync. Your respiration eases further. Every inhalation lingers warmer prior to release. Dampness remains in check. The outer freeze endures, yet it seems remote, buffered by a line you needn't patrol. Here, cognition frequently retreats, not fully dormant, but no longer directing. The physique assumes command, steered by instinct over intellect. You linger in that state, knowing such insight resists documentation. It etches faint footprints. Digs rarely sees stance or tempo. Scripts falter at voicing what inwardly seems self-evident. Still, this insight rivaled any implement or substance. It enabled survival sans shelters, sans endless flames, sans surplus. It rendered wintry eves foreseeable enough for sound slumber. As time meanders forth, you embrace this insight wholly. You cease scanning for shifts. You halt forecasting woes. The obscurity has already bared its course. Enveloped in that profound corporeal certainty, you edge toward drowsiness, borne by patterns honed via iteration over decree, assured that amid the deepest freezes, your frame recalls precisely how to endure. Midway through the gloom, chronology slackens. You quit measuring moments or spans. The blackness expands in a manner that seems expansive, over-oppressive. It's here that minor customs gain weight. not for altering the freeze, but for reshaping the evening's essence. You perceive these customs intuitively, not visually. One last tweak performed identically each time. A customary stance assumed sans deliberation. A hushed interlude pre-repose that resembles easing a portal shut over bolting it. These gestures don't proclaim their weight. They occur plainly, and their routine instills peace. Those enduring such seasons typically gauge the dark, not by dials or timetables, but by recurrence. Identical chains of deeds announce the peak strain has waned. The evening now invites a subdued traversal over vigilant oversight. You sense that cue deep within yourself at this moment. The fussing over clothing layers has ceased. You're no longer straining to detect shifts in the breeze. All the efforts to get ready are done. What's left is simply holding on, and holding on demands faith rather than focus. Across various cold weather customs, a subtle routine emerges. Just prior to settling in completely, folks might lightly touch the earth or a nearby recognizable item. The motion is swift, barely noticed. It anchors the mind. It verifies steadiness. Hard to tell if it's more about symbolism or just a physical sensation, yet the result brings peace. You observe your mind easing even more after this understated recognition. The darkness seems bounded now. No surprises loom ahead. This absence of anticipation paves the way for true repose. Such practices weren't flashy ceremonies. They skipped chants or grand movements. Instead, they formed everyday patterns forged through routine. Gradually, they turned into cues for the body that it could release its guard. You reflect on how everyday modern routines so often miss these definitive closings. Evenings merge into dawns with fuzzy boundaries. Out here, though, the shift is understated yet total. Readiness wraps up. Repose takes over. Your breaths grow steady. Your limbs fully unwind. The stance you're in right now seems set, as if dictated by custom over choice. This isn't strain, it's practicality. The form has picked what it can sustain effortlessly. A gentleness infuses the evening now, absent before. Not quite coziness, but resignation. The chill lingers, yet it no longer calls for bargaining. It's been handled. Later, some label these customs as sacred. Others view them as mere routines. From within, they seem like none of that. They register as fulfillment, a method of assuring the body that every detail's covered. You ease toward slumber, not abruptly, but gradually. Perception blurs at the margins. Noises recede. Those nearby sink into identical hushed patterns, each guided by their personal cues. The terrain stays motionless. The heavens keep their gradual arc above. No alterations demand reaction. As these understated recurring motions steer you into ease, you grasp that such practices don't rely on significance to function. They rely on reliability. Reliability informs the body of what's coming. What's coming feels secure. Enveloped in that security, you permit the evening to unfold unattended, relying on these subdued indicators, honed over endless repetitions, to shepherd you onward until the shadows start to lift. Out here, evenings drag on, yet they have an end. You perceive that nuance clearly. Prolonged evenings unfold softly, offering room for renewal. Infinite ones weigh heavy, craving exertion. This one has eased into a load the body can bear. You realize the frost hasn't intensified, it's hit its peak and plateaued. That's key. Evenings such as this show that not every freeze tests endurance bounds. Plenty probe perseverance. The toughest stretch is frequently just persisting without squandering the groundwork laid. You rest there, sensing the evening's form unveiled. At first, it tested, it pressed, it posed challenges. Now it merely is. Grasping that lets the body loosen entirely. No further vigilance, no more expectancy. Those who braved cold seasons without shelter learned to spot this stage. It followed setup and tweaks, preceding first light and motion. When evening hit this juncture, lasting hinged more on persistence than prowess. You see how the surroundings require no active oversight now. Shelters hold firm, barriers resist the gusts, forms stay immobile. Balance has been achieved. Upsetting it would stir needless trouble. A serene assurance marks this immobility, not boldness, not resistance, just assurance that the setup suffices. That assurance lets drowsiness sink in deep, not linger shallow. You sense the thoughts no longer circling back to suffering. Before, you might have pondered how anyone weathered such evenings. Now that query seems off base. Lasting isn't born of battle, it's born of flow. The freeze has turned into mere scenery, akin to the gloom. You're conscious of it, but it doesn't command the spotlight. This proves one of the toughest mindsets for winter novices to attain. Once attained, it transforms the whole experience. Certain evenings were doubtlessly tougher. Blizzards struck. Mercury plunged lower. Provisions dwindled. Yet not all were brutal. Plenty mirrored this, calling for resolve over daring. Those evenings bridged entire cycles. You tune into the evening's pulse. Now comes the extended core, the languidest span, where slumber runs profound and vigilance wanes. The segment to weather in silence. Your inhales stay measured and even. Heat escapes at a steady, controlled rate, keeping the equilibrium intact. You reflect on how future accounts tend to boil winter down to a stark emblem of suffering. That portrayal overlooks this central phase. The evenings that were merely endured, not fought against. The ones demanding endurance over bravery. You're immersed in that endurance at present. No force propels you ahead. No tug draws you rearward. The darkness cradles you right in place. As the moments flow onward, you sense our endurance absent from dwellings. It depended not just on ingenious fixes, but on discerning when to act and when to pause. Grasping that distinction preserved vitality across lifetimes. The evening has bestowed upon you this interval of repose. You embrace it unquestioningly, and while the time keeps its hushed progression, you stay anchored in the night's most extended shadow, assured that this serene interval, now attained, will guide you softly toward the faint shifts heralding dawn's arrival. The surroundings seem more delicate at this point, like the evening has been softly eroded by its own endurance. The shift isn't visible to you yet, but it's perceptible. The chill no longer advances aggressively. The gloom loses its density. Something is yielding. Even if it hasn't fully receded, you remain motionless, observing how your form reacts ahead of your mind. Tension in your limbs eases a bit further. Your inhales grow fuller without strain. The stance you've sustained for so long ceases to feel intentional. It comes naturally, as though molded for precisely this instant. This tends to be the time when recollections start to fade. The preceding hours stretch in your memory, yet specifics blur. Efforts to ready yourself recede into the distance. All that's left is the outcome. Heat retained, vigor safeguarded, poise upheld. You ponder momentarily how scant material traces such evenings as this yield. Come daylight, Wrappings get stowed, bedding gets rolled away, and the earth betrays few clues of its meticulous tending. A passerby afterward could remain oblivious to the profound wisdom that unfolded silently through these periods. That's why piecing together this lifestyle proves so elusive in full. Artifacts endure, ruins offer hints, but stance, rhythm, moderation, and perception vanish with the sun. The essence that truly counted evaporates traceless. You perceive the frost diffusing now, dispersed uniformly instead of clustered. No piercing edges call for vigilance. This uniformity permits profound relaxation. Your frame no longer has to guard vulnerable spots fiercely. It all stays encompassed simply. Your musings wander leisurely. Visions flicker by. Flurries turf, fingers tweaking coverings. They pass swiftly without sticking. Slumber lingers nearby, not dragging you in, but beckoning softly. The others nearby stay hushed. Nobody shifts. Nobody must. The evening enters its most tender stage. This isn't the peak of chill. It's the epitome of tranquility. You observe your exhalations misting faintly less beneath the wrappings. Heated air persists. Dampness remains in check. Modest triumphs accumulate soundlessly. Descendants would later attempt to envision these evenings, frequently padding the voids with intensity. They'd envision perpetual conflict or ceaseless woe. Reclining here presently, you grasp the shallowness of that depiction. The bulk of the evening lacks theatrics. It's just inhabited. You repose in that realization, releasing any impulse to clarify or defend. The evening seeks no analysis. It calls only for being there. As the time edges nearer to daybreak, you detect that the toughest labor lies concluded. What's left calls for forbearance, the sort that resembles drifting more than anticipation. Your physique stays adequately toasty. Your psyche stays serene. The harmony endures. And in this serene interlude bridging profoundest dark and initial glow, you recline bolstered by decisions forged ages past, sensing how thriving sand structures wasn't one clever ploy or method, but countless minor insights stacked upon each other, sustaining through the shadows till the surroundings start revolving once more. The evening doesn't conclude abruptly. It unravels, sensed initially as a gentle dilution, an impression that the shadows no longer bear down as heavily. The freeze persists, yet it has forfeited its dominance. It no longer seems definitive. Your physique registers it prior to your cognition. Respiration adjusts subtly. Limbs rigid for ages commence gearing for alteration. Not action yet, merely anticipation. The prolonged equilibrium you've upheld overnight has fulfilled its role. This marks the instant all has been subtly awaiting, not the sunrise proper, but its foreshadowing. The evening has been weathered wall-less, chamberless, anchorless to the soil. What sustained you was cover not as a sight, but as an ongoing ritual, vigilance, synchronization, unity, temperance. You rest there, comprehending that no spectacle demands occurrence now. There's no haste to awaken, no abrupt revelry for enduring. Thriving in this realm was never boisterous. It doesn't proclaim victory. Life just keeps going. The chill lingers steadily a bit longer, yet it seems fleeting at this point. Your form senses that motion will soon come back, and it will be secure once more. You can generate warmth without risk. Duties can pick up where they left off. Reflections on the evening drift through your mind, even as the specifics start to blur. The initial bite of the frost, the deliberate preparations, the quiet hush, the collective companionship. how all the elements align seamlessly without any guidance. That's the essence that rendered homes a choice, not an absolute. It's not the absence of protection, but a deeper grasp of what it truly means. The landscape starts to alter in subtle, almost imperceptible manners. Noises propagate in new patterns. The atmosphere seems lighter, less heavy. In the distance, a bird rustles tentatively, debating if dawn has arrived. These cues are subtle, yet sufficient. You stay in repose, allowing the darkness to ease you free on its own terms. No urgency to hasten the change. All essentials have been safeguarded already. And as the shadows truly start to fade, a straightforward, enduring truth dawns on you. Enduring wasn't about conquering the dark hours. It meant blending into them sufficiently to allow their departure. Ease off. The rhythm eases even more. Ideas expand. Phrases elongate. No additional details demand attention now. Just the sensation of being cradled amid the obscurity. Safety envelops you here. The evening has fulfilled its purpose, quietly receding. The frost eases its hold without resistance. Your physique understands the moment to rouse itself. Until that instant, it reclines. Release the strain of striving, the focus of vigilance, the urge to grasp further. The tale has found its rightful place. Inhale deeply and steadily. Sense the firmness under you, the silence encircling you, the lingering heat that's ample to guide you softly toward slumber or into your personal dawn. No further action is needed. Pleasant rest.